The girl looks with huge blue words and asks if the young man wants to kill her. Seeing the bewildered look of the young man, the girl asks that it be painless. The young man stands respectfully bent at the girl's bedside and does not know how to respond to her strange words. The young man whispers that, as a faithful servant of Lady Selena, he cannot do such a thing. The girl clearly knows that this devoted servant will attack her with magic in the future. Selena asks the young man to give up magic, because it will be better for him. The young man does not understand anything in her words. A few days ago, this girl woke up in the world described in the book Crown of Dawn. Erin thought this book was very lousy, but her sick sister was delighted with it, and the girl had to read it out loud more than once. Erin was an orphan who was adopted by a childless couple, but they soon had a child of their own. Unfortunately, the girl was born with a fatal, incurable disease, and her parents blamed Erin for all the misfortunes. The girl was poorly fed, abused, and beaten. The entire life of the older sister had to be completely devoted to the younger one. What Erin should study, what job she should find, all of this was decided for her sister's sake. All of this was not her. Sometimes Erin began to hate her sister, but when she saw her lying in a hospital bed, the hatred disappeared by itself. The sisters' relationship was very complex. They both hated and relied on each other. And then one day, the younger sister left this world. She was not yet 12 years old. The need for Erin disappeared, and it didn't take long for the adoptive parents to kick the girl out of the house. Finding herself on the side of the road, the girl's desire to live completely dried up. Erin climbed one of the abandoned high-rise buildings and, in the pouring rain, walked to the very edge of the roof. The girl is too tired and doesn't want to remember anything. She doesn't have the strength to take care of herself, and she doesn't want to struggle with difficulties anymore. All that remained in the girl's memory from her sister was the image of a sick, completely weakened figure. Erin doesn't understand why she only remembers this image if her sister was everything the girl lived for. The girl is crying and cannot understand why her sister did not get better, at least for a moment for her sake. The girl thinks that nothing matters now because this is the end. She takes a step forward and falls off the roof. Opening my eyes. Erin doesn't understand why death turned out to be so pleasant. She feels as if she was reborn in a new world. For some reason, it is too light around and there seems to be some vague movement around. Suddenly, a girl appears next to Erin and screams deafeningly loudly that Mistress Selena has woken up. Some people appear at the girl's bedside and say that she, Selena, fell down the stairs 4 days ago and only woke up now. Erin doesn't understand where she is and who these people are who are calling her by someone else's name. Trying to ask a question, the girl realizes with horror that she cannot speak. Only a quiet wheeze comes out of her throat. The nervous doctor asks everyone to calm down. The lady lay there for several days without getting up, which may be why it's difficult for her to speak now. Suddenly, the girl clearly remembers that the handsome young man, Aaron Howitt, Selena's older brother, remembers Erin and Selena's parents, Duke and Duchess Howitt. Suddenly, the girl realizes that after committing suicide, she did not die, but woke up in the body of Selena Howitt. Left alone, the heroine tries to comprehend everything that is happening and understand where Selena herself has gone in this case. Suddenly, the maids come into the girl's room and, deftly arranging many plates, report that they have brought dinner to the lady. The girl feels brutally hungry and eats the food with pleasure, reasoning that the dishes served are not very similar to medicinal ones. A few days later, the girl's voice returned. Her parents, who constantly visit their daughter, are sincerely happy that she is recovering. Erin cannot fully accept what is happening and thinks that it is quite unpleasant to call strangers mom and dad. Suddenly, the girl asks the Duke and Duchess where they are and who she is. The woman says that they are the Duke and Duchess of Howitt. The young man is their son Aaron, and the girl herself is their daughter Selena. The parents ask if Selena remembers Lucas and the holy maiden Ariel. The girl says that these are probably their servants. The girl realizes that she read about all these people in a stupid book that their sister liked so much. In the book, the main villain was indeed named Selena. According to the plot, the young man from the strange dream was a devoted servant of the girl. The boy was a street orphan whom little Selena brought home out of pity. She subsequently made him her servant and used him as a slave for many things. The young man was not really devoted to her. Assessing the situation, he simply went with the flow, and in the end, he would be the first to betray the heroine and try to kill her. That same servant is constantly next to the girl, trying in every possible way to serve. The new Selena, knowing the plot of the book, is afraid of the young man and asks him to leave her alone. Left alone, the girl assesses the situation. She cannot believe that she has become Duchess Selena from the book. Book Selena was a real villain and a greedy woman who wanted to get everything she didn't have. The girl really wanted to get the dukedom, which Aaron was supposed to inherit. Selena did not have enough talent to satisfy all her desires. The girl studied day and night, but it did not bring the desired result. Aaron, unlike his sister, was an outstanding student, and in everything else, his brother was also superior to Selena, which only made her anger grow. It didn't take long for the villainous Selena to take action. Aaron was in love with the beautiful holy maiden Ariel, and the young people were getting married. Marriage would strengthen Aaron's position as heir, so Selena created all sorts of obstacles to thwart their plans. Ariel's allies learned of the villain's evil plans and ultimately imprisoned her. Selena failed to get what she wanted and became distraught. At the age of 23, the girl dies in captivity and loneliness. Aaron is horrified by the terrible fate that awaits her in Selena's body. The girl plunges into apathy. He does not want to fight or change anything. He will simply live until he dies. Aaron doesn't understand why, instead of death, God moved her into the body of a book character. She decides that all this is too troublesome and falls into sleep. In the dream, Aaron remembers as if in reality that she did not shed a tear when her sister died. In the last moments before her death, Selena bitterly repents of what she did. She prays to God for help because she does not want to die all alone. Perhaps at that moment something happened that connected the souls of the two girls with an invisible thread. And at the last moment of Selena's life, the spirit of Aaron, who decided to die, appears before her. Aaron really feels sorry for Selena. No one deserves such a terrible death. Two lonely souls are now connected. When Selena was on the edge, she desperately asked for someone to stand up for her. The villainess wanted to turn back time and have time, like Aaron, to commit suicide before she was imprisoned alone. And therefore, Aaron now lives in her body. After that strange dream, the new Selena decides to do everything to fulfill the desire of the former owner of the body. First, she needs to get out of bed. Whatever Selena decides to do, she is surrounded by maids everywhere, fulfilling her slightest desires. Lying in the garden, the girl does not understand why there are so many servants. Having eaten to her fill, the girl is no longer so determined to fulfill her promises. Enjoying the good weather, birdsong, and delicious food, Selena gradually begins to fall asleep. Suddenly, the girl wakes up from an incomprehensible noise coming from nearby. Deciding to see what's going on, Selena quietly makes her way through the bushes, trying to remain unnoticed. On the lawn, sweating profusely, a stunningly handsome man is practicing with a sword. The man swings his sword again and again, cutting through the air. Selena watches the man dreamily, deciding not to reveal her presence for a while. Suddenly, the girl notices that her long hair is very tangled in the branches of a bush. The Duchess struggles to untangle her hair, but realizes with despair that she cannot do it without outside help. The man suddenly hears a woman's voice calling out to him from behind the bushes. The hero, constantly ready for danger, became alert, and having prepared his sword, moved towards the voice. In the bushes, the man sees Selena lying on the ground, who embarrassedly admits that it was she who called him. The hero looms over the Duchess at full height and does not believe in the reality of what is happening. At this time, Selena's servant is sitting on the terrace of the castle and eating sweets, although by order of his parents, he should not have left the girl alone. Suddenly, the young man wonders why the lady decided to get rid of him and hopes that nothing unexpected will happen to her. The man bows before the girl and asks for forgiveness that there has been no news from him for a long time. Selena, realizing the absurdity of the situation, distantly asks to help her untangle her too thin hair. Suddenly, the man begins to laugh uncontrollably, unable to stop. Selena carefully examines the laughing man and realizes that he knows him. This man is an elite horseman of the Howite family, but the girl can't remember his name. Knowing what happened to Selena and seeing her confusion, the man says his name is Lucas. With one deft and strong movement, Sir Lucas pulls the girl's hair out of the branches and looks at her. This year, Selena turned only 19 years old, but she is already quite famous for her villainous actions. Everyone in the Howite family is good-natured and decent people, and only the girl is the only one who is hunting so hard for the inheritance. Despite the fact that Aaron inherits everything by seniority, the girl insisted that she was the rightful heir. Selena continued to pursue the holy maiden Ariel. If the wedding took place, it would secure Aaron's right to inherit the throne. Until a certain point, this was not a big problem. Many other dukes had heard about Selena's bad behavior. Lucas is also aware of everything. Everyone is silent because Ariel does not want to attract the attention of gossips. According to the knight, Selena is completely unsuitable for the role of Duchess. Lucas notices that the girl looks surprisingly calm today. The man thinks that before she lost her memory, the Duchess would have already screamed and demanded that all these bushes be burned to the ground. With regret, Lucas thinks that it would be better if Selena's memory did not return at all. The girl carefully examines the man's face and thanks him for the help provided. Selena remembers that Lucas is the one who fell in love with Ariel in the story. In winter, on Selena's 19th birthday, Ariel was waiting for Aaron and fell into the villain's trap, faced a terrible cold. But Lucas saved her. Aaron stood up for his sister. Because of this, Ariel broke off the engagement, and after some time fell in love with Lucas. But feelings had not yet flared up. The girl thinks that she still has time to fix something and change the knight's attitude towards Selena. The girl leans over to Lord Lucas and quietly says that if he likes her, then they may well become friends. The heroine thinks that if the honorable and distinguished equestrian of the ducal family mourns at her funeral, then she has completely coped with the task. Now the girl needs to make every effort to make friends with the Lord, and then he will come to her funeral. After thinking for a second, the knight says that he is very sorry, but they cannot become friends. Selena, realizing that all her attempts are leading nowhere, sadly says that nothing can be done about it. Getting ready to leave, the girl turns around and says that in any case she will continue to want this. Little Erin never had friends. Her parents did not allow her to make them. The girl had to devote all her time to caring for her sister. Erin was always told that if she wanted a mom and dad, she had to do what they said, or she would be kicked out of the family. The girl sadly realizes that in her mind she still calls those people her parents. Selena heads towards the house and does not understand how she had the courage to ask Sir Lucas to become her friend. As a child, Erin often played computer games secretly from her parents. There was one game that was popular among the girls' classmates, which they constantly discussed. Erin didn't know anything about it, but she started playing it with enthusiasm and immediately encountered a powerful monster. From the first attack of the monster, Erin's character was killed. The girl silently turned off the computer and never played this game again. Going up to the chapel, Selena thinks that now she has a similar feeling, as if she has completely cooled down to everything. The girl gives up in despair and asks the real Selena for forgiveness for not being able to fulfill her request. Erin is sure that she won't be able to make people really mourn at Selena's funeral. The girl reasons that in her past life she couldn't cope with anything, and in this life, she won't be able to cope with anything. There's at least one thing Aaron can do for Selena: die before she's left all alone. Lost in her desperate thoughts, the girl makes a decision and approaches the very edge. The real Selena is a member of the ducal family, and at least now she is cared for and loved. These people have not yet turned their backs on her, and will sincerely grieve for their daughter and sister. This time the decision is also quite difficult, but she sees no other way out. After standing a little longer, the girl makes up her mind and again takes the last step into the abyss, choosing death. Lord Lucas slowly walks along the path. The thoughts that something is clearly wrong with the Duchess haunt him. The knight reasons that memory loss may explain the changes in her behavior, and besides, she has not left her room for several days. Lucas wonders why the villainous Selena suddenly wanted to be friends with him. The man knows the girl's character well. Such behavior is not at all in her style, and somehow she reacted too carelessly to his refusal. Passing by a tall bell tower, Lucas glances at it and notices some strange movement at the top. The knight goes further and thinks that he has a bad feeling. It seems to him that he is missing something important. Suddenly, Lucas realizes that Selena looked indifferent and lifeless and walked right towards the bell tower. The man suddenly jumps up and rushes up the stairs as fast as he can. Seeing Selena at the very edge, who is ready to take her last step, Lucas, by some miracle, manages to grab the girl's hand at the very last moment. With all his might, the knight pulls Selena's hand and, pressing her tightly to himself, pulls her away from the edge of the bell tower. The man is so amazed by Selena's act that, sensing her closeness, he abruptly lets go of the girl, and she falls to the floor. Selena looks at the Lord with an indifferent gaze and asks why he was following her. Suddenly, Lucas realizes exactly what Selena was going to do, and if he was even a minute late, she would no longer be alive. The man kneels down and quietly asks the girl if she decided to jump because he refused her friendship. The girl is silent, lost in her thoughts, but Lucas needs to hear the answer. Selena, looking at the man, thinks that he is a really good guy. The girl reflects that by her action, she can subject the knight to a serious feeling of guilt for contributing to her suicide. Realizing that she cannot place all the blame on the man, Selena definitely states that he is not to blame for what happened. Lucas asks in bewilderment why she decided to jump off the roof. Selena understands that Lucas won't just leave her alone and will still have to answer something. The girl, citing memory loss, asks if they were so close before that they are now talking about such topics. Selena says that her desire to jump off the roof immediately after their conversation is just a misunderstanding and asks the man to leave. Lucas is stunned by the girl's behavior, afraid that she will try again as soon as he leaves. The girl answers ironically that trying to take her own life twice in a day is too much even for her. Selena clearly understands that deciding to die is the most difficult decision a person can make. Noticeably limping after an unexpected fall to the floor, the girl approaches the stairs and realizes that it will be very difficult to go down. Suddenly, Lucas, noticing the girl's problem, picks her up in his arms, intending to help at least with this. Descending the stairs with Selena in his arms, the man asks the girl not to climb this bell tower again. Having delivered the Duchess to her chambers, Lucas regretfully tells the girl's parents about what happened, who are simply horrified by what happened. Suddenly, Duke Howitt becomes ill and almost falls, caught in time by Lucas and his son. The upset father holds his heart, but assures the young men that he will be okay. The Duke approaches Selena's bed. He is in despair that his only daughter could take such a step. The Duchess's servant stands under the door and listens with interest to what is happening. The doctor asks the girl who has recovered from sleep what is bothering her. Realizing that Selena has no complaints about her physical health, he gently asks why the girl decided to jump from the roof. Not knowing how to explain to the doctor the true reason for her action, the girl simply replies that everything is too troublesome. Having come out to the girl's concerned parents, the doctor states that the girl's physical health is in perfect order. The man continues that the girl looks worried, and perhaps she needs a change of scenery. Discussing their daughter's condition with the Dukes, the doctor says that stress and fatigue have greatly affected the girl. Memory loss combined with emotional insufficiency accumulated inside the girl. All that people close to Selena can do is give her time to recover and, if possible, not leave her alone. Duke Howitt turns to Lucas and asks him to look after Selena. Aaron has no face. He sincerely loves his sister and is having a hard time with what happened to her. Aaron, like his father, asks Lucas to do everything possible to keep Selena safe. The young man feels guilty and believes that he is partly to blame for what happened to Selena. Lucas recalls that at one time, the Duke and Duchess treated the boy, the same age as Aaron, as a son, and gave the boy a room in the castle. Looking at the young Duke, Lucas thinks that he is his sworn brother, more than just a friend, so he knows how dear his sister is to Aaron. But despite her brother's feelings, Selena truly hates the young man. Lucas feels responsible for the Duke family, which has become truly dear to him, so he must help them and be there for them. Selena's servant is always nearby, never leaving the girl alone. The girl constantly asks him to leave. She does not yet understand how to behave with the young man. But the butler says that by order of her parents, he is forbidden to leave the girl alone. Selena understands that because of yesterday's action, her problems have only increased. The girl is really afraid that Aiden will kill her while she sleeps. Selena says with irritation that apparently the young man does not understand the meaning of the word go away. Angrily, the girl notices that Aiden's legs must already be numb from constant standing and tells him to sit down somewhere. Aiden, not understanding what is happening to his mistress, answers in fear that he is not tired at all. Selena explodes, saying that, unlike him, she is tired of being constantly stared at. Turning to the wall, Selena realizes that this world is terribly boring. There are no interesting books, no internet, and to listen to music you need to call an orchestra into the room. Suddenly the girls seem to perk up and decide that if everyone is developing a plan to save her, then she needs to come up with a plan to die. Death should not be some kind of pitiful death. It should be something that she and the real Selena will like. Aiden looks sadly at the sleeping mistress. What happened that she changed her attitude towards him so dramatically? The next morning, despite the beautiful weather, Selena is again gloomy and thinks that the reality around her is terrible. The girl notices that, as before, Aiden is still sitting in a chair not far from her bed. Lucas visits the girl's room every day as if it were his own home, which also greatly irritates the Duchess. Suddenly, Selena sits up on the bed and declares that she wants to go outside. Both men immediately announce that they will go with her. The girl walks through the park, feeling with her back that the escorts do not take a step away from her. Selena thought that if she behaved quietly, everyone would leave her alone. But 5 days passed, and there was no change. During these 5 days, the parents came to their daughter's room every day and cried. Suddenly, Selena meets Aaron, who also went for a walk. The girl knows that her brother sincerely worries about her, but knowing the character of the real Selena, she prefers not to say anything. During these 5 days, Aaron tried to stay out of sight of the girl so as not to disturb her. Suddenly, Selena invites her brother to take a walk with her in the garden. Aaron, although surprised, happily agrees. Selena turns to those accompanying her and says that she and her brother will go further. Seeing the men's indecisiveness, Aaron says that he will look after his sister and they can return to the castle. The girl wonders how her brother is feeling because he looks tired. Aaron assures Selena that he is fine and wonders if she has regained her memory. The sister says that her memory is slowly starting to return. The girl clearly remembered many moments. Stopping abruptly, Selena says that she remembers well her hatred of her brother. Completely unexpected for Aaron, Selena asks him for forgiveness for having such feelings for her brother. Aaron is stunned. He is so confused that he cannot utter a word. The girl humbly bows before the young man and asks for forgiveness for all the bad things she did to him before. Aaron honestly admits that all this is too sudden for him. It's so unlike Selena. The young man accepts his sister's apology and happily thanks her. Selena goes further and asks her brother how long Aiden and Lucas will keep an eye on her. The brother honestly answers that until the girl fully recovers, she will have to endure such attention. Selena tells Aaron that she has an unexpected request for him. The Duke and Duchess of Hawite are shocked after Aaron tells them of Selena's desire to meet the holy maiden Ariel. The parents doubt that this is a good idea after everything Selena has done, even despite the memory loss. But the son tells how sincerely his sister apologized to him and is sure that everything will be fine. In addition, although partially, Selena's memory is gradually returning. The parents eventually agree, but ask Aaron to be present at the meeting. In the greenhouse, Selena and the maiden Ariel drink tea in a calm atmosphere. Ariel Frankrit, the holy maiden of the Empire, Aaron's lover, really looks like a heroine in real life. Selena notices that the brother and the maiden look very harmonious together. They even have similar faces. Probably this is fate. Instead of making the brother a hero, the author of the novel makes the heroine fall in love with his best friend. Why is everything so unfair? The girl understands that young people, given their past, are very uncomfortable in her presence. Suddenly, the Duchess stands up, bows, and apologizes from the bottom of her heart for all her terrible actions. Virgo Ariel is simply shocked that the Duchess bows before her and asks the girl to quickly raise her head. Selena promises that she will never do anything like that again, and she also blesses the couple. The Duchess admits that after her brush with death, she began to think about human life in a new way. Ariel is embarrassed by the girl's words, looks with fear at her fiancé, who is looking at her confidently, and thanks Selena. At this time in the castle, the head butler sympathetically asks Aiden how much he gets from his mistress. The guy admits that after the tragedy and loss of memory, Lady Selena seemed to become a different person. One of the maids is perplexed how it is possible to change so much just by losing her memory. Maybe the lady has a psychological disorder. Aiden realizes that this could very well be because the mistress is acting very strange. Selena lies on the bed and thinks about the fact that her brother's wedding will take place very soon. In the novel, the couple broke up without getting married, but the girl hopes that after an apology, the plot will change and the couple will still get married. Selena recalls that after tea and a frank conversation, both houses agreed on the wedding day. Suddenly, Lucas comes into the room and asks with enthusiasm whether the Duchess really wants to spend such a wonderful day in bed. The girl replies sarcastically that she is safest in bed. Lucas notes that Selena needs to be in the sun more often. The girl retorts that if you open the curtains, then you can sunbathe in bed. Suddenly, Sir Lucas explodes and begins to scream loudly in an inhuman voice. Just as unexpectedly, the Lord falls silent and calmly asks him to forgive him for the outburst. He is really worried about the Duchess's health. Selena remembers the book. Luas is an experienced deceiver. In public, he pretends to be a good-natured gentleman, but in reality, he is very calculating. The girl understands that if she doesn't get up, this performance won't end. She's already seen enough. Selena realizes with horror that due to the many days spent in bed, her legs simply cannot support her, but she cannot ask for help from the Lord. The girl calls out to her servant and asks him to help her. The Duchess hurried to get up without waiting for Aiden and fell to the floor. Aiden rushes to the mistress's aid, carefully lifts her up and asks if everything is okay. The girl looks at the young man and thinks that he is also an actor. He also does not believe that he sincerely worries about her. The girl looks intently at the servant and suddenly asks what his name is. Selena has achieved her goal. The young man feels completely confused and anxious. The company goes out into the garden. Both young men carefully support the girl's hands. Suddenly, it occurs to the Duchess that both guys walking next to her are incredibly handsome. Lucas has silver hair and purple eyes and also perfect facial features. He looks like Apollo. Men were described as handsome in the novel, and now the girl could see this for herself. Aiden is a green-eyed blonde whose hair is so golden it's annoying. But Selena noticed that lately, Aiden often looks upset and gloomy. In fact, all this time the servant is thinking that his mistress has even forgotten his name. The company leisurely strolls through the garden. Sir Lucas notices that the Duchess needs more physical activity. Aaron's wedding is coming soon, and if the lady shows up so pale, it will make the guests worry. Selena indifferently replies that she will start going out for walks more often. The knight does not stop there and declares that the Duchess should eat while sitting at the table and not lying in bed. Selena abruptly pulls her hand away and tells Lucas that his work is finished. She will soon return to her room. With irritation, the girl advises Lucas to finish his performance. She notices everything and is not very pleased. Selena turns around and heads back to her room, arm in arm with Aiden. Lucas thinks with a grin that having lost her memory, the girl has changed a lot, and her penetrating gaze has become even sharper than before. The Lord understands that he is so curious about what is happening that even if he had not been asked, he would still continue to follow Selena. Sitting in the greenhouse over tea, the Duchess addresses her servant. The girl asks why he is so nervous that he doesn't even eat. Aiden, not knowing that all the emotions are written on his face, tries to deny everything and convince his mistress that everything is fine with him. Selena calmly reports that from now on she decides to walk and eat only in the company of the young man, because she is disgusted by the rest. The young man is confused and says that, unlike Lord Lucas, he does not have the strength to protect the Duchess if something happens. Selena deadpans that Aiden can always use magic. The girl sees everything clearly on the young man's face and understands that she has said too much. Aiden falsely says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Changing the topic, Selena pushes the young man a piece of strawberry cake and offers him something to eat because he loves sweets so much. The young man, confused, asks the girl for permission to ask her a question. Aiden asks how the lady knows that he likes sweets if he doesn't even remember his name. Selena calmly replies that she noticed how the servants in the house, whom Aiden cares about so much, bring him cakes every time something happens. It was written in the book that the unfortunate servant was afraid that he would be thrown out into the cold again, and clung to the house of the dukes with all his might. Every time the lady mocked him, the servants of the ducal house took pity on him. High-quality treats from the table of aristocrats were shared with the young man. The girl tries a piece of chocolate cake and suddenly freezes with a strange expression on her face. The young man fearfully asks his mistress what is the matter. Selena remembers that she tried the cake once in her life, when she visited her sister in the hospital, and she shared the cake. The girl ate the cake not because she liked it, but because her sister liked it. The girl sadly realizes that in her entire short, real life, she never became herself, with her own tastes and habits. Aiden is alarmed. He asks again and again what happened to the lady she turned so pale. Suddenly, Selena says in a low voice that she hates chocolate cakes. The young man immediately rushes to the mistress to take the hated cake from her. The young man silently puts his piece of strawberry cake closer to the girl and takes the chocolate one. The servant looks at his mistress with sadness. He does not understand why her mood changes so often. Sometimes she looks at him so strangely. Aiden thinks that since the mistress woke up, she seems to have left this world. She looks like a grieving child. The Duchess, having tasted the strawberry cake, says that it is the most delicious she has ever tasted. Aiden quietly says that if they bring his mistress cakes that she doesn't want to eat, she should call him. He will gladly help her out. The maid opens the curtains, letting in bright sunlight, and loudly says that it's time for the lady to wake up. The girl opens her eyes with difficulty. Getting up at 6 in the morning was not part of her plans. But the maid says that today is Aaron's wedding day, and they have very little time. Selena, lying in the bath, idly reflects that it shouldn't take much time to get ready. After several hours of endless procedures, The Duchess realizes that she was very mistaken about this. The newlyweds decided to hold the wedding ceremony not in the imperial palace, but in the halls of the ducal estate, which caused quite a lot of trouble for everyone. Aiden enters the room out of breath and says that he brought forgotten jewelry. The Duchess sits in a chair in a half-open robe and is actively preparing for the ceremony. Aiden looks at his mistress and cannot look away. Then the maid runs up to the servant and says that the jewelry was delivered just in time. Being the mistress's servant, Aiden entered the mistress's chambers more than once, but never saw her change clothes. This greatly embarrassed the young man. Selena is already exhausted, and the maids are still not far behind and ask to choose a dress. The girl, without looking, chooses the one on the left. Now the maids insist on choosing shoes. The Duchess again chooses the ones on the left without looking. This is really tiring. The girl has never dressed up like this before, and of course she doesn't know how to choose from the abundance of everything. Finally, the girl looks at herself in the mirror and does not recognize this beautiful stranger. Selena thinks that she will never get used to someone else's face, but at the same time, her own face has been completely erased from memory. Suddenly, the girl wonders what the real Selena's face usually looked like. The girl tries to smile mysteriously, but the grimace that appears scares even herself. Judging by the reaction of the maids, you shouldn't grimace when there are so many people around. Suddenly, Lord Lucas appears in the room completely silently and unnoticed. Selena notes displeasedly that, in fact, in decent houses it is customary to knock before entering. The Duchess remembers that on her last walk, she tried to tell Lucas that she did not need him to accompany her to the wedding. But the knight stubbornly replied that, despite her words and hints, he wanted to be with her. The girl said that she did not want this, but in response she heard that she had no choice. Selena thinks that at least Lucas has stopped pretending to be a gentleman. Every time during a walk, he appears out of nowhere and behaves obnoxiously intrusive. Finally, the maid says that the mistress is completely ready to go out. Selena looks at herself in the mirror. There is nothing to complain about. The reflection is truly perfect. The girl, pleased with her appearance, sincerely thanks the maids for their efforts. The girls leave the Duchess's chambers in bewilderment, quietly discussing that this is the first time the lady has praised and thanked them. Selena sarcastically asks Lucas why he came, because it's obvious that she won't be going out today. The Lord politely replies that he came without warning and asks permission to accompany his lady at the wedding. Selena coldly reveals that she doesn't need Lucas to accompany her. She was going to ask Aiden for it. Lucas says that Aiden is just a servant, and if the mistress goes only with him, it will make a bad impression on the public. Selena angrily understands what social inequality means. Aiden is always left behind on walks. Sometimes during breaks, the young man simply watches everything, standing outside the window, and sometimes he goes away completely so as not to interfere or disturb the masters. And this time, the young man is also not allowed to go where the aristocrats gather. The girl angrily says that treating people of lesser birth as trash is simply unacceptable. Suddenly, Selena understands the awkwardness of the situation and, trying to correct it, says that she is not talking about Lucas, but about aristocrats. Sir Lucas replies that he and the Duchess herself are aristocrats, in case she has forgotten. Selena coldly says that if Lucas is done with his business, he can leave. The girl says that she still has things to do before the wedding, and if it's not difficult for the knight, then he could call Aiden. Lucas throws the door open and informs them that this is not necessary, since Aiden has been standing outside the door the whole time. The Duchess's words deeply affected Aiden. As a child, he remembered very well what it was like to feel like trash. Kindness, warmth, hope for street children were just words from a children's fairy tale. The lady who appeared before the boy was like a ray of light. That year, the winter was so severe that many children simply froze to death. Squeezing the outstretched hand, Aiden hoped that he could live a little longer. The tramp hoped that this beautiful girl would take him into a world similar to a children's fairy tale, but the illusion was destroyed in an instant. The boy was destined to become the mistress's personal servant. In reality, he served only as a lightning rod for her anger. At the first meeting, the girl so sincerely extended her hand to him, and then began to say that he should obey only her. Growing up, young Aaron always showed his best side as the heir to the ducal family. Selena, captivated by feelings of envy, could no longer hide her cruel character. The girl always blamed Aiden for all her failures, calling him useless. In a rage, Selena shouted that she had sheltered the boy in spite of everything, and he simply had to be useful to her in some way. The boy tried his best. He begged the lady to tell him what to do, and he would do everything. One day, Selena ordered Aiden to find out what textbooks Aaron would study from, steal the books, and bring them to her, in the hope that it would help her perform better during a family dinner. Aiden sincerely does not understand how he can do this without incurring the wrath of the entire ducal family. The girl pushes the guy with all her might and screams that she better not pick up this damn scum. The girl continues to rage, screaming that Aiden is just trash, who is not even able to serve tea. It was humiliating and unbearable for the boy to endure insults and beatings day after day. But Aiden understood that if it weren't for the mistress, he would have long been lying by the side of the road, frozen to death. The boy persuades himself to endure and be glad that he has a bed, and the winter winds will not touch him. At the age of 17, the young man suddenly thought that his current life was not much different from the times when he was begging on the street. That day, it became known that Mr. Aaron would graduate from the academy as the best student, and the lady, in a fit of anger, tore the room to pieces. Suddenly, a large and heavy jewelry box flies at Aiden's head. The box breaks the young man's head, but at first he does not even notice how blood is flowing down his face. Selena is horrified to see the blood. Aiden convinces him that everything is fine with him, but the mistress does not calm down. The young man says that he will now send someone else and runs away from the room. Once in his room, Aiden realizes that something has broken in him. He is filled with an insatiable desire to kill his mistress. The young man was overcome with unbearable rage for all the humiliations that he had endured for so many years. Suddenly, Aiden began to cry along with his anger, and for the first time in his entire life, he cried. The young man felt a bitter feeling that he had been betrayed, although he understood how stupid it was. Suddenly, a magical glow appeared around the servant, at first imperceptibly, and then growing brighter. The young man looked in surprise at the magic ball, which obeyed the slightest movement of his hand. Aiden realizes that his desperate cry from the soul has suddenly turned into magic. The guy wonders if the blood of magicians flows in his veins, then whether he should use this power against his mistress. Aiden wonders with interest what Selena's reaction will be to the fact that her useless servant has magical powers. Reason takes precedence over emotions, and the guy decides to keep his ability to use a magical gift a secret for now. The young man is thinking about visiting the wizard's tower in the hope that he will be accepted there. Aiden thinks that if he acts recklessly, he could be kicked out of the ducal house, so he decides to act pragmatically. The guy decides to hide his magical power and just endure it further, as he has done up to this point. After the incident, the mistress's attitude became somewhat softer, but this made the young man's heart heavy. Aiden remembers Selena's words about not treating people like trash. Watching the girl, the guy thinks that even though she has lost her memory, it's simply funny to hear such words from her. She's probably up to something. Arriving at her brother, Selena again falls on her knees in front of him, which makes Aaron feel awkward. The Duchess sincerely asks for forgiveness. She is sure that she will have to atone for all her past actions for a long time. Selena decided to come early and congratulate her brother on such an important event before the ceremony began. Aaron is moved to tears. He loves his sister, and the changes that have occurred in her resonate in his soul. Aiden wonders what the lady was up to. First, she went to Lady Ariel. Now she has come to her brother. Heading to the Duke's chambers, Selena sadly thinks that their sincere love and care is intended for the real Selena, and not for her. What a shock it will be for the parents to find out that the girl is not their daughter, but a stranger who borrowed her body. Selena knocks on the door, thinking that no matter how much she wants to avoid the meeting, she must fulfill her duty to them. The mother who opens the door hugs the girl tightly. She is so glad that Selena finally visited them. The father is glad that his daughter decided to congratulate them before the ceremony. This is the best day of their lives. The girl is very touched by gestures of friendliness and warm words of greeting. She so wanted to receive all this in a past life. Selena tells herself that this couple wants to see not her, but their daughter. And although this is the girl's new life, their love does not belong to her. The girl rushes into her mother's arms and sincerely thanks her parents for taking care of her. The mother understands with tenderness that on the eve of her brother's wedding, the youngest daughter has finally matured too. The girl is amazed at how wonderful this family is and wonders with bewilderment what Selena was missing so much that she ruined everything. Walking down the corridor, the Duchess turns to Aiden and suddenly asks if it is true that she first met him, beaten on a dark road. Aiden doesn't quite understand what these questions are about, but he is glad that the mistress's memory is returning. Suddenly, Selena quietly says that she once threw a box at him, and the young man began to bleed. Realizing all the horrors that his predecessor did, the girl realizes with despair that she does not belong here. Selena turns sharply and rushes forward. Aiden doesn't have time to say a word. Running up to the stairs, the girl thinks that she does not want to hold on to vain hopes in a world to which she will not get used. Aiden tried to catch up with the mistress, but ran up to the stairs too late. Realizing that Selena has decided to repeat her attempt to die again, the young man screams in an attempt to stop her. The guy rushes after him with all his might, trying to grab the girl's hand. As Selena falls down, she is surprised to notice that despite Aiden's future attempts to kill her, he now looks terribly saddened. The girl has accepted her fate, but instead of being hit, she feels a strange feeling of floating. Aiden, using his secret magical power, keeps the girl from falling. Having picked up the Duchess in his arms, the guy carefully lowers her to the floor. The young man wants to ask if everything is okay with the mistress, but she does not let him finish, covering her mouth with her hand. Selena asks in bewilderment why Aiden decided to save her. Suddenly, maids appear from all sides and ask in horror what happened to the mistress. Looking at her servant, Selena explains that she felt dizzy, but Aiden caught her in time. In her room, the Duchess notices that when the young man saved her, he used magic. Instead of answering, Aiden calls the maids to help the mistress clean up, and he runs away. The young man himself does not understand why he saved Selena, because she has always lived indulging her whims. The lady did nothing but mock and humiliate the guy, but he never really wanted to kill her. At a desperate moment in his life, the girl gave the boy a helping hand, and he can never forget this, no matter what. Aiden runs into the mistress's room with the intention of telling her all his thoughts. At that moment, Lucas enters the room and says that he must escort the lady because the ceremony is about to begin. The Lord notices that Selena's hair is disheveled and tells Aiden to call the maids. Lucas notices with suspicion that something is happening between the servant and the mistress. Guests continue to arrive. The orchestra plays wonderful music, and the tables are laden with treats. Lucas leads Selena to the table where the family is sitting and invites the Duchess to sit down. The head butler announces that the newlyweds will now appear before the guests and offers to greet them with applause. The beautiful Aaron and the Holy Virgin Ariel appear before the public, and the guests greet them with loud applause. The young Duke notices his sister sitting nearby and happily waves to her. The girl, immersed in her sad thoughts, does not want her brother to smile at her because she is not the same Selena and will soon leave anyway. The trumpets begin to blow. The champagne flows like a river and the celebration begins. The guests have to stand for a long time during the ceremony. Lucas notices that the Duchess looks tired. The Lord, noticing the girls walking in their direction, notices that Selena will be leaving soon and prefers to disappear. The girl turns her head and sees a crowd of young girls approaching her. One of the young friends joyfully greets the Duchess and says with concern that she heard about her ill health. Selena embarrassedly says that everything is already in order. Thanks for your concern. The girl is perplexed. She heard that the Duchess lost her memory, but now it's like a different person in front of her. Looking at the confused Selena, the girl reminds that she is Vivian Jonas. Their house sells clothes. Suddenly, the girls hear a loud shout and see a bright, showy girl approaching them. Selena remembers that this is the daughter of the Marquises. In the novel, she was the villain and Selena's right hand, and played a significant role in shaping the girl's character. The Duchess coldly apologizes to Lady Mia Ratchapel and says that her memory has not yet returned. Mia confidently says that her memory will certainly return, and the girl will remember that they were best friends. The girl quietly asks Selena whether she really lost her memory or was up to something interesting. The Duchess says with regret that, apparently, they were really close before, but now she doesn't remember anything, and she's embarrassed about it. Mia, horrified, asks not to say that, because they used to be like sisters. The Marquise is sure that Selena is evil by nature, and if she creates the right situation, the girl will definitely remember everything. The girl thoughtfully looks around and, noticing Aiden, gestures to him. A servant approaches. The girl notices that they have not seen each other for a long time and asks to bring her a glass of lemonade. Turning around, Mia cheerfully winks at Selena, but the girl does not understand why she is doing this. Aiden hands the Marquise a glass. The girl imperceptibly jerks her hand, and lemonade spills on her dress. Mia begins to angrily shout at the servant, saying that he ruined her expensive dress. The young man humbly asks for forgiveness. The girl is furious and declares that the guy was able to live so long only thanks to Selena, so he must do his job flawlessly. Selena, petrified, watches what is happening, unable to utter a word. Mia hits the young man on the shoulder with her fan and orders him to do what he must. Remembering the past antics of the two villains, Aiden realizes that as punishment, he must kneel. Realizing that he has no choice, the young man bends his knee, asking to be forgiven for his mistake. Suddenly, a hand grabs the young man by the shoulder, preventing him from kneeling. Turning around, the guy sees that Mrs. Selena is trying to lift him up. The audience freezes in amazement. Mia cannot believe her eyes. Selena tells Mia that her ears hurt from the girl's foul language. The Duchess says that today is the wedding of her brother, the eldest son of the Hoyt family, and the Marchioness, for some reason unknown to her, is causing a fuss. Miss Ratchapel tries to justify herself, saying that in this situation she is the victim. The young man spilled lemonade on her dress. Selena calmly says that she saw what happened. Aiden is not to blame for anything. Mia set it all up on purpose. The Duchess offers to listen to the opinions of other ladies if the Marquise insists on her own. Suddenly, all the girls begin to confirm Selena's words. Mia is left all alone. The Marchioness rushes to the Duchess and begs her to remember that Aiden was always just a toy for her. Mia is surprised to note that what Selena is doing now is not at all like her. The Duchess notes with cold indifference that she does not see the need to behave so demonstratively. The girl forcefully pushes the Marquise's hand away and declares that from now on they are no longer friends. Lucas comes up and politely remarks that the lady does not look very well and they should return to their chambers. Selena admits that she really wanted to attend her brother's wedding, but she was really tired. Lucas politely offers the girl his hand and offers to accompany her. Passing by Aiden, who had been silent all this time, the mistress tells him to go with them. The girl extends her hand to him and asks why he is still standing. The young man looks at his mistress in awe. The way she extended her hand to him reminded him of their first meeting. Aiden understands that no matter what, She will forever remain his mistress, and he will be her faithful servant. Selena reprimands that the young man should not kneel, following someone else's example. Suddenly, the Duchess turns around and publicly declares that Mia's ridiculous and provocative dress makes her look like a tangerine. A moment later, everyone around begins to laugh at the Marquise, who stands completely alone in a rage. The girl angrily cannot believe that the relationship that she so diligently built with the Duchess is collapsing. The Marquis, the girl's father, silently watches this whole scene, standing a little to the side. Mr. Rachapelle tells his servants that it is time to return home. Marquise Mia will get home herself. At night, Selena once again has a strange dream about the real owner of the body. The girl doesn't understand why Selena is now bursting into tears if she was so cruel before. Selena always screams something in her sleep, but the girl does not hear her voice. Aaron asks Selena to wait a little longer, and everything will be over. She put things in order in her life as best she could. But this body cannot calm down. Perhaps only when Aaron follows Selena will there be peace for everyone. The girl, exhausted, buries herself in the pillow. These dreams are incredibly exhausting. In the morning, Selena goes out into the garden and is surprised to notice that summer is coming. And when she appeared here, it was spring. Lord Lucas announces that if the lady has completed her preparations, they can leave. She notices with alarm that the girl is very pale. Selena explains this as a bad dream at night. The maid and Aiden are wondering if they really don't need to accompany their mistress on the trip. Selena remembers that thanks to her worried parents, it was decided that Lucas would go with her. Aiden is upset that he cannot go with his mistress and asks her to take care of herself. Lucas approaches the young man and asks him to tell the Dukes that he and the lady will be back before it gets dark. Approaching Aiden closely, the Lord says that the young man is like an open book, and if he doesn't want everyone around him to know, then he should control his emotions. Lucas advises the young man to be careful for the sake of his mistress's honor and for his own sake. In the carriage, Selena notices that the knight has a strange expression on his face. It is unclear whether he is having fun or he is not feeling well. Lucas strangely responds that someone irritates him, but his behavior irritates him even more. Selena, deciding not to delve into it, says that everything will work out, and Lucas, no matter what, is still good. Suddenly, a stone falls under the wheel of the carriage. The girl is thrown onto the seat and she hits herself quite noticeably. Lucas once again anxiously asks if everything is okay with the girl. Selena notices that almost every time they meet, the Lord asks this question. The knight answers with a laugh that every time they meet, the girl really doesn't feel well. In the crowd, Selena is completely lost. Lucas presses her to him and asks her to come to her senses. Seeing that the girl is very bad, the man decides to urgently take her to a calmer place. The Duchess gradually comes to her senses and reflects that in a large crowd of strangers, she becomes very ill. Lucas puts a wet handkerchief on Selena's face and says that's why he asks the girl about her well-being every time they meet. The girl tells the Lord that recently he calls her simply by name. He has stopped being respectful to her. Lucas from the novel has always impressed with his ideal manners, but for some reason now he is becoming more and more familiar with Selena. Suddenly, Selena realizes that Lord Lucas is obviously trying to make friends with her. The man is embarrassed, but then admits that why not try to become friends? The Duchess wants to find a quiet place, hidden from human eyes, suitable for her plans. Walking leisurely, the girl notices a tall tower standing a little in the distance. Lucas says that this is the only clock tower in the duchy, but he will not let her go up there. Selena indifferently says that she didn't intend to. She doesn't think about any nonsense anymore. The Lord notes that the girl eats the food of commoners quite often, and it bothers him. The girl thinks that before she had no choice, she ate whatever they gave her. Suddenly, behind the square where young people were walking, shouts of abuse could be heard. Some man yells at the boy for this, that he scratched his carriage and threatened him with a cane. Lucas notices with annoyance that wherever you go, there are showdowns everywhere, and invites the Duchess to leave before even more people gather. The girl does not listen to the Lord. She asks if he will stand up for her if that man swings his cane at her. The knight assures Selena of his protection, but realizing that she is up to something, he tries to stop her. The girl cannot believe that she witnessed such a terrible sight, which reminded her of the past. Selena remembers her first meeting with Aiden and realizes that she simply cannot stay away. Before the Duchess's eyes stands such a proud but defenseless young man. Selena comes to the boy's defense and urges the man to stop. The coachman sharply asks who she is and demands that she mind her own business. Suddenly, Lucas approaches the coachman and advises him to watch his language. The man, having assessed the appearance of the young people, understands that they are aristocrats in front of him and makes the excuse that he simply wanted to teach a lesson. The coachman says that aristocrats must punish mistakes, otherwise what will happen to the morality of society? People standing around begin to whisper that the coachman himself drove at great speed and almost hit the boy. Suddenly, Selena, who had been silent all this time, snatches the cane from the man's hands. In a rage, the girl hits the cane with her knee with all her might and breaks it in half. No one expected such a reaction from the Duchess. The coachman and Lucas watch her actions in amazement. Suddenly, the man furiously attacks the girl, shouts that Selena is an obscene girl and cannot be an aristocrat, and threatens to call the guards. The girl calmly agrees and says that she will tell the guards that the man hit her on the knees with a cane. The Duchess explains that the coachman also wanted to shift the blame onto the boy, and she will simply do the same to him. Suddenly, Sir Lucas begins to laugh uncontrollably, so hard that tears come to his eyes. People standing around begin to be indignant. The coachman drove like crazy, almost hit a child, and everyone saw it. The people shout that they will side with Selena and confirm her words to the guards. The Lord, wiping away his tears, ironically asks the coachman if he will call the guards. The man is afraid to contact Lucas, says that he has urgent matters and is in a hurry to get away from them. Selena sits down in front of the boy and gently says that this world is full of strange people, and you need to be careful. The Lord who approaches declares that the girl herself is the strangest at the moment. It's time for them to leave. The young people are walking along the pavement, and Lucas notices that the Duchess's skirt is torn, and she is noticeably limping. The knight carefully asks if the lady's knee hurts, and notes that she shouldn't have done that. The girl admits that initially she did not intend to break the cane, but then she became distracted and could no longer stop. The girl asks her companion to choose the shortest route because she really wants to go home. The man looks at Selena and realizes that they really should hurry up. The girl can barely stand on her feet. Lucas hears a noise behind him and tells Selena that they will go home as soon as he gets rid of the rats. Turning around, Selena notices a crowd of robbers who have clearly decided to profit at the expense of others. The girl is very scared and cannot remember whether something like this happened in the novel or not. Lucas tells the Duchess to stand behind him and promises that he will sort everything out. The Lord hands the robbers a bag of money and says that if this is enough, then they can part ways on good terms. The gang of bandits starts laughing, and one of them declares that money alone will not be enough. Lucas, with gradually simmering anger, asks what else do they need. One of the gang says that he was tasked with catching one very rude girl and teaching her a lesson. Selena immediately understands who she is talking about. The coachman turned out to be an even bigger coward than she thought. The knight also understood who we were talking about, and if the robbers do not value their own skin, then he is also ready to teach a lesson. Lucas draws a huge sword from its sheath and says that no one can take away the lady who is under his protection. Selena looks at the Lord's face when he is not playing, but really serious, he looks completely different. Suddenly, the girl asks not to carry out the massacre. If her parents find out about this, they will again forbid her to leave the house. The Lord, recognizing that the girl was right, tells the bandits that they were extremely lucky, and the lady saved their lives. One of the robbers orders the others to stop shaking with fear and attack. An angry crowd waving weapons runs towards the young people. Lucas hugs Selena tightly and asks her not to be afraid of anything, but to hold on to him. The Duchess closes her eyes in fear, and the Lord easily repels all attacks with one hand. With a smug grin, Lucas tells the girl to hug him as tightly as possible and not let go. The robbers get excited and attack the couple with the whole crowd, hoping to take them not by quality, but by quantity. Meanwhile, in the castle, Jane chases the mouse and finally kills him with a blow from a shovel. Aiden hands the maid a bag, tells him to put the mouse in it, and he will take the bag out of the castle. Walking through the garden, the young man looks for a secluded place, hidden from prying eyes. Having laid the unfortunate little mouse on the ground, Aiden wants to test the power of his gift. After some time, the rodent comes to life and turns its head around in confusion. Aiden realizes that he still knows little about healing magic. In the future, he wants to learn to control his powers. But then the young man remembers Lucas's words that he is just a servant who does not know his place. The guy understands that he needs to pull himself together. The mistress should not find out anything about his feelings. Aiden doesn't care what the whole world says about him, but if Selena looks at him with contempt, he won't stand it. Selena frantically grabs the Lord's clothes and thinks that it's not easy to hold on and not disturb him at the same time. The girl notices with surprise that despite the rather intense battle, Lucas didn't even lose his breath. That's what a brilliant knight means. The Lord, holding the Duchess, says that everything is over and you can relax. The man carefully removes the hair from the girl's eyes and asks her to tell him if she feels bad again. Lucas invites Selena to find a quiet place, but at that moment the last of the bandits attacks the Lord from behind. The knight delivers one lightning strike. He cannot be caught off guard by such a primitive attack. Selena feels very bad and asks Lucas to come back as quickly as possible. The couple does not have time to take even 2 steps before the Duchess's injured leg twists and the girl falls. Lucas rushes to Selena. He is afraid that despite his protection, the girl could have been hurt during the skirmish. Aiden is helping in the garden, picking flowers for bouquets, and is worried about how it will soon get dark. Hearing the sound of an approaching carriage, the guy rushes as fast as he can towards the driveway. Seeing the carriage arrive, the young man is upset and understands that this is not Selena's carriage. He wonders who it was that arrived. A very respectable-looking man emerges from the carriage with a servant at his back. Aiden looks at the guest with surprise. The silver brooch, the indigo-colored clothes, it all seems very familiar to him. One of the lackeys tells the young man that a magician has come to their castle, and it seems that he is from the Imperial Magic Department. The butler greets Monsieur Alogen and informs him that the Duke is expecting him. Passing by the servants, the man glances at them briefly and notices a magical glow around one of them. The footman tells Aiden that every year people come to the castle to introduce new magical technologies. But this is the first time the magician himself comes. Mr. Alogen walks down the corridor and thinks about the interesting young man he noticed. The guy must have already noticed his potential. Lucas says with surprise that the Duchess broke her cane a long time ago, and her leg started hurting only now. Selena answers with embarrassment that she not only broke her cane, but also her knee. Suddenly, the Duchess decides to assess the extent of the injury and lifts her skirt above her knee. Lucas is horrified and shouts that Selena is an aristocrat. Such behavior is simply unacceptable. The girl calmly asks not to pay attention. She just needed to assess the condition of her knee. The girl's knee was very swollen and had a huge red and blue bruise. Lucas sees that the knee looks terrible. It should have already started to hurt, which means the girl has been in pain all this time. Suddenly, a pleasant voice is heard next to the young people, asking for forgiveness for disturbing them. The young man says he heard about the girl's injury and thought he could help. Selena looks at the young man with interest. He is so pale and gloomy that he looks like a vampire. The young man introduces himself and says that his name is Ian, and he is a priest. Unexpectedly, Selena declares that if the priest can help her, then she will be grateful to him. The young man puts his hands on the girl's injured knee and begins to cast spells. A mysterious magical light appears from under the priest's palms. A few minutes later, the young man removes his hands from the Duchess's legs. Not a trace remains of the bruise. The young people are so stunned by what they see that they cannot utter a word. They examine the girl's knee. Sitting in the carriage, Selena remembers the words of the priest when they talked after his treatment. Yang saw how the girl stood up for the child. He said that her determination to protect the weak, her kindness directed him towards further education. Lucas watches Selena thoughtfully. He doesn't understand why the girl has changed so much, because before everyone called her an indifferent monster. Now the Duchess apologizes for her mistakes and thinks about the feelings of other people. Now the girl is helping the weak. How can a person change so much in an instant? The Lord thinks that another soul has moved into the girl. Otherwise, he cannot explain all these changes. But the most disturbing change is that Selena always has a completely blank stare. Noticing how the girl is looking intently at the clock tower, Lucas is struck by the realization that Selena wants to die. The Lord looks thoughtfully out the window and decides to do everything in his power, but not let Selena die. At night, Aiden turns from side to side and cannot fall asleep. The young man is overcome by disturbing thoughts. The young man remembers that the magician's emblem is a silver brooch, and their uniform is indigo color. The magicians of the Empire have undeniable respect among the people. They are called lords and are considered real aristocrats. The guy thinks about what they would say about someone like him. They probably have a different attitude towards commoners. Aiden looks out the window, notices the moon in the sky, and thinks that the strength of mana depends on its phase. The young man desperately does not understand where and why he received this magical power. Even decades later, Lucas cannot forget that terrible sunset. The Lord grew up in an ordinary but very happy family with caring parents. The boy loved his mother very much, but unfortunately she was very sick. Lucas grew up in a family of fallen aristocrats. His father hid his status and left for work every day at dawn. The boy endured it, no matter how cold he was or how hungry he was. The only thing Lucas dreamed about was that his mother would not die of illness and leave him alone. Mom took him to her bed and promised to try to get better. The boy quickly learned what the world really was like. He learned that his family was impoverished because his aunt stole all their property. If Lucas's family had money, his mother could have been cured. The boy's father volunteered to join the monster fighting squad, led by his uncle Hunter. The boy's mother tried to dissuade her husband from such a dangerous service, but the man explained that if he went to the battlefield, the Count would help with the costs of treatment. The father promises his son that he will definitely return soon, and the boy must look after his mother. But 3 months later, no one began to help with treatment. The boy, in desperation, knocked on the door to his aunt, asking for help. Opening the door slightly, the aunt threw Lucas a bag of money and threatened to break his hands if he knocked on their door once. The boy, with tears in his eyes, collected the pitiful coins and tried not to think about what he would do next. Suddenly, Lucas realizes that the sun is already setting, and he still needs to get to the hospital in time. But at the hospital, they slammed the doors on the boy, saying that he did not have enough money. Lucas, with difficulty moving his feet, comes to the house, thinking that no one wants to help them, but he simply has to do at least something. Going to see his mother, the boy realizes that without medication, she has become completely weak and cannot even speak. Suddenly, the boy's mother begins to cough up blood violently, and after a few moments becomes silent forever. Lucas, in horror, persuades his mother to wake up and not leave him alone, because he is very scared. Having somehow buried his mother, the boy sat motionless at her bedside for several days. A few days later, the door opened and the father came into the room. The boy rushed into his arms with relief. After sobbing for several hours on his father's shoulder, the boy wants to take his hand, but realizes that instead of a limb, his father has an empty sleeve. It was from that day that Lucas decided that no matter what, he would survive in this fucking world. Duke Hawait became a reliable support for the boy in gratitude for the fact that Lucas's father sacrificed his hand to save his life. Lucas no longer trusted people and began to hide behind a mask to protect himself from this cruel world. But only the Hawait family could a man swear allegiance with all his heart. Aaron comes into Lucas's room with a bottle of wine and says that he couldn't pass by when he saw the light in his chambers. Laughing, Aaron says that it is very important to have a friend who is ready to drink with him at any time. Lucas gets up and thoughtfully admits to his friend that he can't stop thinking about Selena. Aaron sadly says that his sister seems carefree, eats, sleeps, walks, but the man can't shake the feeling that she could just disappear. The young Duke admits that he wants to see his sister with her head held high, but has no idea what he can do for this. Lucas approaches his friend, puts his hand on his shoulder, and asks if he knows a priest named Ian. After listening to the story about today's events, Aaron exclaims with enthusiasm that with his help, they will be able to heal the hole in Selena's heart. But Lucas is not so optimistic. It is unclear why people do not know about the priest who has healing powers. Suddenly, the Lord from the balcony notices Aiden standing in the garden, silently looking at the moon. Lucas thinks about the fact that insomnia attacked the people in the mansion that night. Noticing Lucas's gaze, Aiden bows respectfully. The knight, trying to catch up with the departing Eden, deftly jumps from the balcony into the garden. Lucas tells the servant that he and Aaron will be leaving for a few days, and orders the young man to make sure nothing happens to his mistress. Aiden assures that the Lord has nothing to worry about. He, as a servant of his mistress, always thinks about her safety. Sir Lucas says with a grin that lately he often gets to know the young man from an unexpected side. Grabbing the servant by the hand, the knight threateningly says that if the lady wants to go somewhere, the young man is obliged to stop her. Lucas adds that it is better not to let the Duchess go anywhere under any circumstances, especially not to let her near the clock tower. Aiden forcefully pulls his hand away and assures him that he understands everything. The next morning, Aaron says goodbye to his sister and asks her to take care of her health. Selena thinks with sadness that she is seeing her brother for the last time, who will sincerely love her to the end. The sister gently takes her brother by the hands, trying so that he does not notice her true feelings, does not notice that she is truly saying goodbye. Suddenly, Lucas brazenly grabs Selena's hand and tells her that it's time for them to leave. The girl asks the man to look after her brother and silently says goodbye to the Lord. Suddenly, Aaron, overwhelmed by some incomprehensible emotions, breaks the handshake of the young people. The man grabs Lucas by the arm, drags him towards the carriage, and declares that it is high time for them to leave. Lord Lucas looks menacingly at Aiden, hoping that the young man will keep all his knightly promises. In the carriage, Aaron explodes, reprimanding that even he, as a brother, does not dare to take Selena's hands so brazenly. Lucas laughs, understanding his friend's feelings, but says that sooner or later there will still come a time when his sister will be held by someone else's hands. Thoughtfully, the Lord reports that it is quite possible that it will be him. While trying to bait Aaron, Lucas notices that whoever this lucky guy is has a steep barrier ahead of him. Before Selena lost her memory, she really liked Lord Lucas. But at that time, the girl was not at all interesting to the man himself. The way Selena changed after the tragedy somehow influenced Lucas and made him change his opinion about her. Aaron seriously says that although he is ready to give his life for his adopted brother, he will not give Selena to him. The young Duke knows the anger and loneliness tearing Lucas apart from the inside, and Selena needs a calm man who will make her smile. Lucas himself also needs a girl who can heal his emotional wounds. Sitting at the table, Selena sorts through the mountain of invitations received after her brother's wedding. Lady Jonas sent an invitation to an evening in the Rose Garden. The girl asks Aiden in bewilderment what it is. The young man explains that this is a tea party that takes place in the summer, just in time for the rose-blooming season. Selena says thoughtfully that it sounds quite interesting. After a while, the Duchess announces to Aiden, who has come in, that the two of them are going to the evening of roses. The servant rejoices at the opportunity, of course. This doesn't mean anything. But this time, neither Lucas nor Aaron will be with them. Running out into the yard, the young man asks the lady for forgiveness for keeping him waiting. Selena coldly replies that everything is fine and says that they should leave now. Jane politely wishes for a good journey, and the Duchess mentally begins to say goodbye to everyone. Seeing the bowed butlers, the girl reflects that they are truly kind people and did everything for her sake. Suddenly, Selena realizes that in a place that seemed foreign to her, she has found peace. Remembering her parents, Selena reflects that these people were able to show her what it was like to be loved and to love. In the carriage, the girl opens her eyes and sees that Aiden is hovering over her, trying to protect her from the bright sun with his hand. The Duchess suddenly grabs the young man by the hand, sits him down next to her, and notices that sitting next to her, it will be easier for him to block the sun with his shadow. The guy holds the hand that touched the mistress and notices that she will be able to sleep on the way. Selena closes her eyes, thinking about the fact that she will quietly sacrifice herself, and mentally says goodbye to Aiden. In a chic pastry shop, a servant looks at the menu in amazement, noting that he has never seen such desserts and understands that there is nothing to do with his salary. Selena rises from the table and says that she needs to leave for a while. Looking at the young man, the Duchess understands that if she leaves, the guy will wait for her without eating a single bite. The girl sits back down with a sigh and declares that everything is fine, and she has changed her mind. The servant tries one of the desserts and screams in amazement because the taste is truly incredible. Aiden states that he has never tried anything like this in his life and wonders with interest what ingredients were used to prepare it. Selena looks out the window and reflects that the last dinner turned out just perfect. The girl understands that it's time to end this whole performance and do what she planned. Suddenly, Aiden notices a chocolate cake and says upset that he shouldn't have ordered it because his lady doesn't like it. Deciding to wait a little longer, Selena says that the servant has done nothing wrong and can eat the dessert himself. The young man declares that if he eats chocolate cake, then the lady should also try something. The Duchess notices that Aiden is simply glowing with happiness compared to how he looks at the estate. The young man embarrassedly asks for forgiveness and states that he must have relaxed too much. The girl wonders what the servant is going to do next. He won't work on the estate all his life. The Duchess notices that he needs to look for a business he likes, for example, opening a pastry shop. Aiden sheepishly admits that he has already calculated how much money he will need to leave the estate. Throwing his head up, the young man with a smile declares that now he doesn't want to go anywhere. Selena puts the cup on the saucer and asks in surprise why the servant doesn't want to do what will bring him pleasure. Aiden gets up from the table and says that now he wants to serve his mistress. While pouring tea for the girl, the guy says that until the Duchess becomes sufficiently independent, he will not go anywhere. Selena calmly notes that, judging by the young man's words, if she hadn't been there, he would have been doing what he loved a long time ago. Suddenly, the girl hears a ringing sound on the clock tower and realizes that there is no point in delaying any further. Aiden gets up and notices that they have to go. Pink velvet is already waiting for them in the salon. The girl realizes with regret that time flies too quickly, but there is no turning back. The couple approaches the clothing salon owned by the Seven Jonas, and the Duchess is happily greeted by Vivian. The girl is very happy that the Duchess agreed to attend her rose evening and choose a dress for him in their salon. Selena greets the girl, reflecting that she did not know who the party organizer would be. Vivian and the saleswoman grab the Duchess, declaring that the salon has the best dresses. Showing the outfits, Vivian notes that this dress is suitable for any evening or celebration, and it is in a single copy. The mourning dress, according to the girl, will ideally express the nobility and sadness of the Duchess. Selena walks over to the rack, sorts through her clothes, and notices that she prefers simple, everyday dresses. Looking at the white dress, the girl thinks that in its simplicity, it seems to symbolize death. Turning to the saleswoman, the Duchess says that they have a very good salon. Both the clothes and the interior delight her. The woman thanks the Duchess, saying that she cannot convey her joy in simple words. Looking around, Selena says that the room is unique in its shape. Suddenly, the Duchess asks if there is an emergency exit in the cabin, for example, in case of fire. The woman nods affirmatively and says that the emergency exit is located right behind the locker room. Suddenly, there are screams, and Mia Ratchapel threateningly declares that she doesn't care about the queue. She wants to see the dresses right now. The lady attacks the maid, shouting that she dare not contradict her. Hearing the sounds of a row, Selena approaches and asks Lady Ratchapel to stop behaving like that. Noticing the Duchess, Mia leaves the maid alone and says that she did not know that it was she who was in the salon. Vivian peeks out from behind Selena and asks if Lady Ratchapel was trying to be violent. Turning around, the girl says that she is leaving and will return after the Duchess finishes fitting. Selena calmly points out that Mia doesn't have to wait her turn. They can easily choose dresses together. The girl stops in surprise, thinking that the Duchess is probably up to something. Miss Ratchapel recalls a conversation with her father after the ill-fated holiday, at which the girl exposed herself to ridicule. The man coldly remarks that only one thing was required of his daughter: to stay close to Hawaii's daughter. The father declares that for this reason he would turn a blind eye to all the expenses and dirty tricks that his daughter used. Ratchapel threateningly says that now Mia is hated not only by the servants, but also by the aristocrats. The girl tries to justify Selena's memory loss, but her father rudely orders her to remain silent. The man declares that he will write his daughter out of the will, and if she does not find a way to return to the Duchess's favor, he will kick her out of the house. Mia furiously thinks that because of the damn amnesia, all her plans have collapsed. Vivian laughs and points out that if Mia clenches her teeth so hard, they might break. Miss Ratchapel screams in rage that this is the last straw, and she will not allow anyone to laugh at her. The saleswoman comes and informs the visitors that the tea table is ready. Noticing the tense situation in the salon, the woman understands that the tea can wait for now. Noticing that the Duchess's servants are starting to laugh, Mia angrily declares that this is already crossing all boundaries. Selena coldly states that the girl has no right to raise her voice towards her people. Turning to Aiden, the Duchess says that she has a fever and asks the servant to buy her an antipyretic. The young man takes out the bag, noting that he foresaw this and took it with him in advance. Aiden notes that if Selena is cold, he can bring a blanket from the carriage. The girl looks at Aiden in surprise and wonders what else he took with him. The young man proudly says that he took with him a first aid kit, spare shoes, and prepared macaroons in case the lady got hungry. The Duchess is puzzled by the servant's foresight. This is so unlike him. After thinking a little, Selena says that she would prefer a strawberry-flavored antipyretic. She won't drink anything else. Aiden looks at the mistress embarrassedly and says that if he leaves, the girl will be left alone. Selena calmly says that the young man has nothing to worry about. There are Mrs. Jonas's knights in the salon. Vivian states that the Duchess will not be left alone, and they will all look after her. Aiden bows respectfully and says that in that case, he went to the pharmacy. Leaving, the young man suddenly asks the Duchess if she is going anywhere and if she will definitely wait for him. Vivian laughingly remarks that Aiden is too worried about the Duchess. She will stay with them, and everything will be fine. Surprised by the servant's questions, Selena tells him to quickly go to the pharmacy. A priest runs out to meet Lucas and Aaron and welcomes them to the temple. The Holy Father asks for forgiveness and states that if they knew about their visit, they would have prepared properly. Aaron replies that he did not come on an official visit, but to offer prayers to God. Passing by a room where people pray, the Duke wonders if she too can honor the goddess Ariel there. The priest fearfully says that he cannot let them into such a dirty room and offers to follow him. The men look at each other in confusion, and Aaron notices that this is precisely the prayer room. The Holy Father mumbles in embarrassment that he didn't mean it at all. It's just that this room is intended for commoners. Friends listen with skepticism that all sorts of rabble are gathering in this room, and the priest leads them to the room for aristocrats. Lucas ironically thinks that in the eyes of God, commoners and aristocrats should be equal. In the office, Aaron explains that a few days ago, a priest from their temple helped his sister, and the Duke would like to meet him in person. The Holy Father is relieved and says that this is a very good thing, and asks what the name of that assistant was. The young Duke reports that the young man introduced himself as Priest Yang. Seeing the confusion of the interlocutor, Lucas says that they wanted to thank the young man and asks to call him here. The Holy Father comes down the stairs and thinks that the gentleman's visit is a good chance to strengthen the relationship between the Duke and the church. Only Jan is confused. The man kicks the door hard and orders Ian to open it. Without waiting for an answer, the Holy Father opens the door and sees that the young man is calmly praying, absorbed in himself. The man forcefully slaps Ian on the back of the head and asks why he doesn't respond when his name is called. The young man, who did not expect the attack, explains that he was praying and therefore did not hear anything. The Holy Father angrily grabs the young man by the clothes and asks if the guy really decided to pretend to be so serious. The priest says that two respected aristocrats want to see him, orders him to change clothes and follow him. The Holy Father brings the humble Jean and asks for forgiveness for the fact that the gentleman had to wait. Lucas immediately recognizes the young man and joyfully greets the one who helped him and Selena. Ian looks at the Lord in surprise and remembers that he is exactly that knight. The Holy Father attacks the young man and shouts that he must greet the gentleman properly. Lucas coldly states that they would like to talk privately with Yanomi and asks the priest to leave them. The Holy Father assures that Ian is still too inexperienced, so he must stay. The Lord looks at the man menacingly and calmly remarks that he does not like to repeat himself twice. The Holy Father mutters in fear that the gentlemen can talk as much as they want, but he is already leaving them. Passing by Ian, the man orders him to show due respect to such distinguished guests. Roughly squeezing the young man's shoulder, the priest warns him not to dare disgrace the name and honor of their church. Lucas looks at what is happening with bewilderment and thinks that Ian is clearly not liked here, even despite his abilities. The Lord remembers the Duke of Hoyt saying that the amazing young man could be very useful to Selena. The man asks Aaron and Lucas to invite the priest to their estate. They must recruit talented people before others do. Aaron warmly thanks the young man for curing his sister's leg. Ian replies that anyone in his place would have done the same, and the young Duchess struck him to the core. The young man remembers how the girl sacrificed herself to save the child, and even the thugs did not scare her. Aaron furiously attacks Lucas, who only revealed that Selena simply fell. Meanwhile, the pharmacist answers Aiden in surprise that there is no strawberry-flavored antipyretic. The out-of-breath young man tiredly asks if there is such a medicine in other pharmacies. The pharmacist laughingly remarks that the guy serves a very fastidious aristocrat, and such a medicine simply does not exist. Going out into the street, Aiden stops in bewilderment and wonders why the feeling of anxiety does not leave him. The servant realizes that something is clearly wrong and runs away, thinking that he needs to return as soon as possible. Vivian looks at the catalog and notes with delight that all the models seem to have been made especially for Selena. Mia sighs and scornfully says that Miss Jonas is just a suck-up. While the two girls are arguing to their heart's content, Selena decides to try on a dress that catches her eye. The saleswoman wants to help the Duchess, but she declares that she will go alone and advises helping the swearing girls. After changing in the locker room, Selena examines herself in the mirror and realizes that everything is now ready for her plan. Having opened the emergency exit door, the girl decisively leaves the salon. Ian fearfully says that he cannot accept the gentleman's offer and has become their personal priest. Young men look at the young man in bewilderment and do not understand what the problem could be. Ian lowers his head and mutters that he is still too inexperienced and could embarrass himself. All he can do is silently pray. Aaron declares that all this is nonsense, and besides, the priest has amazing healing abilities. Yang stubbornly replies that this is not true, and none of his abilities are amazing. The young man says that his abilities are terrible, so he needs to be careful not to harm people. Ian tells Aaron and Lucas that there are many talented doctors in their country and asks in bewilderment why they needed such a mediocrity like him. Young men do not understand why the young man treats himself this way, and it is obvious that the church does not like him. Aaron sadly tells Ian that his sister is very sick and the doctors cannot help her. The young man asks in surprise what kind of illness has overcome the Duchess, since she cannot be cured. The Duke says that Selena is like fragile glass that is about to burst, and he really asks Ian to help her. The head butler asks the Duke if he ordered 4 knights to accompany the young lady. The Duke, not understanding where the servant was going, replies that he really gave such an order. The butler sheepishly reports that the lady slipped past the knights and escaped. The Duke jumps up in fright and hears that the lady left before the knights were given the order. The servant asks for forgiveness. He saw Selena with Aiden and thought that everything was fine, so he did not stop them. The father orders to immediately gather the knights and find Selena at any cost. The Duchess hears with horror the orders being given. Her heart contracts with a bad feeling. Aiden runs into the salon and asks where the Duchess is. The saleswoman replies that the girl has gone to the fitting room. Suddenly, the woman looks at her watch and realizes that the mistress was in the locker room for a long time. Aiden's face changes and shouts that the saleswoman immediately took him to the fitting room. Having parted the curtains, the servant and saleswoman looks in amazement at the completely empty dressing room. The young man despairingly thinks that it is his fault, because Sir Lucas warned him not to take his eyes off the girl. Remembering the Lord's words about the clock tower, Aiden pushes the woman away and rushes to the exit. The young man throws open the emergency exit door and looks around the street in alarm. Turning around, Aiden asks to immediately send someone to the estate and tell him that the lady has gone to the clock tower. The young man says that rumors cannot be allowed to spread, and he really counts on the woman for this. Jumping out into the street, the servant rushes to run with all his might, praying not to be late. Aiden is in such a hurry, lost in his thoughts, that he does not notice the apple cart and stumbles and falls to the ground. Ignoring his bruised knee, the young man continues to run, thinking only that the lady will wait for him. Walking towards the tower, Selena thinks that this time everything is exactly the same. In the last minutes of her life, she thinks only about her sister. The girl remembers how she came to see her sister in the hospital, and her sister again asked her to read her favorite book. Upon hearing the refusal, the girl begins to sob that no one cares about her, and she just hangs out in these white walls all day long. Hugging and reassuring her sister, Erin assures that she will now do everything she asks of her. The girl remembers that her sister always needed her and called her when things were bad. Selena hopes that her sister is doing well, and when they meet, she will have a lot to tell her. The Duchess struggles up the stairs, looking up with despair and thinking that the tower is too high. The girl knocks herself on the knee out of anger and realizes that she can't stop until she's found. Aiden runs into the tower and stops in front of the stairs, trying to catch his breath. Having reached the top, the young man stops hesitantly in front of the slightly open door. A moment later, the servant suddenly opens the door and runs inside, loudly calling for his mistress. Selena sits calmly on the window, looking at the surroundings. Aiden, in desperation, begs the Duchess to get off the window, but the girl calmly warns him not to approach. Turning to the servant, Selena asks why he came, because the girl asked him to leave. The Duchess says that she knows what the young man had to go through because of her, and time will not heal these wounds. The girl does not ask the boy to forget about everything, because it is simply impossible to forget everything. Selena asks Aiden to try to hide his memories deeper, turn around and leave. The girl confidently says that the young man should move on with his head held high. Aiden desperately offers to help his mistress get down so they can walk together with their heads held high. Selena looks at the young man with sadness and says that she has already decided everything and asks for his forgiveness. After hesitating for a moment, the Duchess boldly leans back and begins to fly into the abyss. Selena quickly flies down, noticing at the same time that the sky is incredibly beautiful. Jane diligently wipes the shelves, thinking that before the mistress returns, she needs to clean everything until it shines. The girl turns awkwardly, touches the Duchess's favorite vase with her elbow, and it falls to the floor, breaking into pieces. Aiden, without thinking, runs to the window and jumps over the barrier, thinking only that he must be in time. Stretching out his hand after the Duchess, the young man wants to use all his mana, which he has accumulated over 2 months. A powerful beam of magical light shoots out from the servant's hand and is aimed at the girl. Selena's body is enveloped in magical waves, and the rapid fall stops. Aiden grabs the mistress into his arms and hugs her tightly. Having flown through the dense crown of trees, the pair hits the ground and rolls to the side. The badly crippled young man tries to get to his feet and reach Selena, who is lying nearby. The wounded girl is covered in blood. She lies on the ground and shows no signs of life. Looking at Selena, the exhausted Aiden realizes that all his mana was not enough to save her. The young man bursts into tears, and in despair thinks that he doesn't even know how to use this damn magic and couldn't save what was most precious to him. The Duke and his knights search the forest and finally come across Aiden, who is sitting next to Selena. The father, noticing his lifeless daughter, reaches out his hand to her with a cry of horror. The Duke clutches his bloody daughter to himself, unable to contain the despair overwhelming him. Suddenly, the man hears a quiet sigh that escapes from the girl's chest and realizes that Selena is still alive. The Duke shouts to urgently send a dove to Aaron, who must urgently bring a priest with healing abilities. Aiden stands up abruptly and cannot believe that his mistress is still alive. With the last of his strength, holding his wounded shoulder, the young man slowly approaches the Duke and says that he himself will go to the temple and bring the priest. Aiden tries to concentrate on the destination. He is not sure that he will succeed, but he must do his best. Duke Howitt looks in surprise at the place where the servant stood a second ago, and now only a magical trace sparkles. Aiden thinks he hears Aaron's voice, and the young man tries to follow his voice. In the office, Aaron, Lucas, and Ian turn around in amazement as magical light floods the room. Lucas runs up to Aiden and asks why he is here, and in such a state. The young man has difficulty saying that the lady may die, and they urgently need help. In the castle, all the servants are frantically running around, preparing everything necessary that the doctor requires. The doctor declares that first of all, it is necessary to stop the bleeding, but he just can't do it. Applying another napkin to Selena's head, the man says that at this rate, the mistress may not survive tonight. The Duke invites his wife to sit down, but the woman refuses, thinking only that she cannot help her daughter. Lucas, horrified, grabs Aiden by the shoulders and demands to know what his words mean. The young man begins to cry and frantically talks about the clock tower. Aaron runs up, throws himself on his knees in front of the servant, and asks if Selena is alive now. The guy replies that the lady is barely alive. She hit her head hard, and there is no time to hesitate. The men loudly call for the priest, but Ian stands aside in fear. The Duke approaches the priest and says that now only John can save his sister. Lucas joins his friend and declares that the lady's life is in danger, and he is begging for help. Ian sheepishly says that he is not sure that he can heal such a serious wound. Aiden falls to his knees and begs the priest for help because it's all he can do. The young man begs Jan to take pity on his mistress and give her another chance at life. The priest decisively says that he is not confident in his abilities, but asks to be taken to the Duchess. Aaron thanks Ian, and Lucas orders the carriage to be brought immediately. Aiden resolutely declares that they won't make it in time and grabs the priest's hand. Looking at the surprised gentleman, the young man declares that he himself will take the Holy Father. Ian looks at the young man in surprise, and he tries to concentrate and repeats the words describing the Duchess's bedroom over and over again. As Aaron and Lucas watch the young men disappear, they look at each other, wondering since when Aiden has had magic. Deciding that now is not the time to think about magic, Lucas shouts to Aaron that they need to leave immediately. Noticing that his friend is sitting on his knees, the Lord comes up to him and gently says that he needs to get ready. He will not help Selena with weakness. The Duke bursts into tears, saying that when Selena took his hand to say goodbye, she already made a decision. Aaron kicks himself for not realizing anything and admits that he is a terrible big brother. Lucas, hearing his friend's words, remembers how Selena saw them off. She said goodbye as if they were seeing each other for the last time. With rage, Lucas thinks that as soon as they left the estate, disaster struck, as if the girl had just been waiting for this moment. As soon as Selena freed herself from the gaze of men, she immediately rushed towards death. Aaron looks at the darkness around her in surprise and decides that she is falling straight to hell, where she belongs. Suddenly, the girl notices a bright blue butterfly flying around her and thinks it is Selena's spirit. As Aaron looks at the butterfly, she thinks that they've finally met in person, which means it's really over. The girl, turning to Selena, says that she was able to make sure that her death would not pass completely alone. At least those closest to the Duchess will now mourn her death. Aaron looks at Selena and says that now the Duchess can find the peace she has been waiting for. Suddenly, the girl notices that the heroine of the novel exactly repeats her movements and realizes that Selena is her reflection. Aaron becomes confused and tries to figure out why she looks like Selena. Suddenly, Aaron hears a child's voice calling her and calling her sister. The girl turns around and sees that Mika, her sick sister, is standing in front of her and asks if long hair suits her. Not believing her eyes, Aaron first feels Mika and then hugs her tightly. To the great surprise of those gathered in the room, Aiden and the priest appear, illuminating everything with a blue light. Suddenly, the wounded young man simply falls exhausted. Ian barely has time to catch him. The servant desperately grabs the priest's hand and asks him to help his mistress as quickly as possible. Approaching the wounded Duchess, Ian notices a large amount of blood and again begins to doubt that he can help. The Duke states that whatever the outcome, his entire family is grateful to the priest for coming. The young man puts his hands on Selena's head, illuminating her face with a bright light, and begins to pray, asking God for help. Mika laughs cheerfully and asks how Aaron got here, because the girl is the only one who could be here so early. The sister pats her hand on the chair and invites the girl to sit next to her, because she wants to show her something. Aaron looks around in surprise, not understanding how they ended up in the cinema. The little sister reports that this is her first time in such a place, because she has never been anywhere other than hospitals. Mika's friend notices that her sister is also here for the first time, because due to her sister's illness, she could not afford to have fun. The show begins, and scenes from Aaron's life appear on the screen frame by frame. When the shot appears on the roof, Aaron covers her sister's eyes with her hand, saying that she shouldn't look at it. Mika replies that she already saw everything. When she died, her whole life flashed before her eyes. The girl looks at Aaron and says absolutely seriously that she understands what she had to go through. Mika says she wants to understand something else and asks if her sister will answer one question. The girl asks when her sister was 9 years old if she really wanted to kill her. The Duchess, in despair, holds on to her daughter's legs and begs her not to leave, but to return to them. When Aaron was 9 years old, all she wanted was for her mother to praise her. The mother tears the paper into shreds and shouts that instead of visiting her sister in the hospital, the girl is bringing some pathetic piece of paper. When Mom looked at her little sister, her look was different. She always looked at Aaron differently. Before her sister was born, Aaron's life was like a beautiful jar of candy, each of which she wanted to try. The mother says she needs to talk on the phone, and the girl needs to look after Mika. Looking at the baby, Aaron wonders whether her mother would love her again if the girl's heart stopped beating. The girl wonders if happy days will return if her sister disappears. Aaron leans towards the baby and reaches out to her neck. Suddenly, Aaron's mother grabs her by the hair and forcefully pulls her away from the bed. The woman is furious and asks what the girl intended to do now. The mother angrily kicks the girl, not understanding how she could come to such thoughts. The candy jar breaks and Aaron realizes that she will never be happy again. Aaron adamantly tells her sister that she would never do that to her. The girl says that she is not capable of this, and she does not want her sister to suffer. The girl says that then Mika's collar was simply bent and she wanted to fix it. The girl throws herself on her sister's neck and hugs her tightly, believing that she is the closest person to her. Aaron is surprised to hear that, in fact, it was Mika who called her into this world. People can be given multiple lives over a long period of time. Aaron also always had another life that she did not know about, namely, the life of Selena. Aaron asks in surprise if book life is really real. Aaron takes Mika by the shoulders and asks if she really is Selena. The girl does not believe that life as a young duchess really belongs to her. The love she received from all those people was actually hers. Remembering the duchess's mother, father, and brother, Aaron realizes that they are not strangers to her. Mika admits that it never occurred to her that everything would turn out this way. From the moment of birth, the girl spent all her time in hospitals and could only rely on her sister. And when things were hard, she began to be capricious. However, the girl admits that she has always unconditionally loved her only sister. Mika was always selfish, and Aaron was by her side as a matter of course. But in reality, Mika admits she, Mom, and Dad ruined the girl's life and brought her to death. That is why the girl prayed to God, asking him to give his unfortunate sister a chance to live a real life. Mika wished her sister a life in which there would be no sick relatives and selfish parents. Aaron listens in amazement that Mika asked for a life for her in which she would have the opportunity to love and be loved. Aaron says thoughtfully that this is why she was given the chance to live her life once again as Selena. Mika asks her sister not to try to live for someone else this time, and there is no need to die for someone else. The girl notices that Aaron wanted to die because, in her opinion, Selena's soul wanted it. Mika affirmatively says that her sister considered this her duty and was convinced that no one needed her. The girl folds her arms over her chest and sadly says that it was she and her parents who made her like this. Paul approaches Aiden and notices that he is also badly injured and needs to rest. The young man does not hear the words addressed to him and only watches what the priest is doing. Quite a long time passed, and suddenly Ian fell unconscious on the floor in the middle of the room. The Duke excitedly orders the servants to take the Holy Father to another room. The doctor examines Selena and is surprised to notice that the bleeding has stopped. The doctor says that the other wounds have also disappeared, and the Duke asks if this means that the critical moment is over. The Duchess hears with hope that perhaps everything is over, but we must wait for the lady to wake up. The mother affectionately strokes her daughter's head, refusing to leave her alone for even a minute. Suddenly, out of breath, Aaron and Lucas run into the room and rush to the bed. The mother calms her son and says that thanks to the efforts of the Holy Father, Selena was able to survive the most difficult thing. The woman reports that they can only wait for their daughter to come to her senses and return to them. Aaron sadly says that it's too late and she won't be able to go back. Mika happily reports that everything is fine because Duchess Selena's body is still alive. Suddenly, the girl realizes that, obviously, this is not the case at all. The girl says that her sister is scared. She is afraid that the new family will be disappointed in her. Aaron thinks that by jumping, she caused her family a lot of heartache and does not understand how she will be able to meet them. It was as if nothing had happened. The girl is afraid that her family will simply turn away from her after what happened. Aaron thinks that if her parents hate her, she will wish she had died. In oblivion, Selena cannot decide whether she can live an ordinary life. Passing peasants look with alarm at the Duke's house. Has something really happened, since at this hour it is as bright as day for them? The head butler reports that the lady needs rest and orders everyone except those on duty to return to their rooms. Jane turns to the servants and says that she and Paul will take care of everything themselves, and the rest can go and rest. Lisa excitedly says that it is not clear what will happen next, so she will also stay just in case. But Jane assures that everyone should rest, and then they will switch places with those on duty. Paul sadly says that he really hopes that the lady will come to her senses soon. The butler sighs and notes that the servants did not always honor the young mistress so much. But now, in spite of everything, they are more diligent than ever. Jane asks with a grin if that doesn't apply to everyone here. Paul replies that it was a great surprise for him to see a mistress who behaved completely like a different person. Jane begins to sob and says that even though they have been treated horribly 10 times in a row, they are ready to forgive everything for the sake of one good deed. Paul tries to calm the girl down, but she desperately says that the young mistress simply must wake up. Mika takes Aaron's face in her hands and asks her sister to listen to her very carefully. Suddenly, there is a strange hum, and the girl asks if Aaron can hear these voices. The girl listens and is surprised to realize that many different people are calling her. Mom, Dad, Aaron, Lucas, the servants. Everyone begs Selena not to give up and come back to them, and then Aaron clearly hears another voice. Aiden desperately calls out to his mistress, never stopping to say her name for a minute. Aaron listens carefully to the young man's voice and notices that he is full of sadness. Aiden calls Selena again and again, begs her to come back, because he cannot live without her, and he still has a lot to tell her. Suddenly, Aaron notices that the movie theater has disappeared, and she and Mika are at the train station. The girl states that her sister is determined to return, and the train behind the girl came to her call. After a moment of silence, Aaron says that she really has to go back. Mika says that this is a gift from her to her sister and asks the girl to try to live as long as possible. Aaron presses her forehead to her sister and assures that she understands everything. Mika reports that they will definitely meet again, but it will not be very soon. The train starts moving, and Aaron sees through the window that Mika is running after her and shouting something after her. The girl, in despair, knocks on the glass with her hand and says that she doesn't hear anything. Mika screams with all her might for her sister to forgive her for everything she has been through. Angry at her sister's words, Aaron yells back at the stupid girl to stop running because she might fall. As the train speeds away, Mika turns, looks up at the sky, and smiles, thanking God for giving her sister another chance. Selena opens her eyes and sees that she is at home, in her chambers. Aaron, sitting nearby, notices that his sister has opened her eyes and immediately appears at her bed. Having made sure that it was not his imagination, the man loudly calls his mother and father, reporting that Selena has woken up. The parents ran into the room, and Lucas looked at the girl with anxiety and simultaneous relief. The mother hugs her daughter, and with tears in her eyes says that now everything will be fine with them. Quietly entering the chambers, Aiden sees that his mistress has finally come to her senses. Hearing the noise, Lucas turns around, confident that he will see a devoted servant, but there is no one at the open door. The Lord goes out into the corridor and sees that the exhausted Aiden is sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall. The servant asks the knight for forgiveness because, contrary to his words, he could not stop the mistress. With sadness in his voice, the young man notes that a little more and real trouble would have happened. Lucas approaches the servant, throws his arm over his shoulder, and lifts him to his feet. The Lord notices that the Duchess is alive only thanks to Aiden. If not for him, then everything would have been over. Lucas tells the guy to hold on tight and show him where his room is. A few days later in the morning, Lucas thanks the knights for their work and reports that training is over for today. The Howite family are busy with the affairs of the estate, discussing this year's harvest figures. Selena sits peacefully in a chair and looks out the window. The light summer breeze pleasantly refreshes her. Jane happily notes that the weather is wonderful today and asks if the lady would like to go for a walk. Without waiting for an answer, the maid leaves the chambers and sadly waves her head at Lisa's silent question. Although the doctor said that everything was fine, several days had passed since the Duchess woke up, but she still did not say a word. Jane anxiously says that everyone is waiting for Selena to be full of energy again. In the evening, the maid covers the girl with a blanket, noticing that after sunset it became much cooler. Suddenly, Selena takes the girl by the hand, and Jane fearfully asks if something happened. Selena quietly announces that she has something to tell her mom, dad, and brother. The maid happily declares that if the mistress has decided to talk to her family, she will call them instantly. Selena stops the maid and says that when she was unconscious, she heard her voice. Selena asks the amazed Jane if she was the one who, in tears, asked her to wake up quickly. The maid grabs the mistress's hand and asks with delight if she really heard all their voices. The Duchess thanks the girl for calling her every time she came to her. Jane begins to cry and admits that she was very afraid that the mistress would not wake up again. Selena calms Jane down and sincerely apologizes for making her worry so much. Left alone, the Duchess leans resolutely on the chair, intending to get up, and decides that it is time to put an end to what she started. Aaron runs into the room and shouts joyfully that his sister has finally regained her memory. Selena looks at her brother, notices that she's very glad to see him, and thanks him for coming. The father notices that the whole family is now gathered and invites his daughter to sit next to them. To everyone's surprise, Selena does not sit next to her, but falls to her knees in front of the family. Scared, Aaron runs up to his sister and asks what happened. The girl cannot utter a word. She never imagined that it would be so difficult. Selena admits that she caused everyone a lot of trouble, betrayed trust, and moved away. And now she doesn't know if her family can forgive her. The mother runs up to her daughter, sits next to her, and gently takes her hand. The Duchess admits that Selena has always been a difficult child and has trampled on their feelings time after time. With tears in her eyes, the girl hears that her mother does not hold a grudge against her, leaves everything in the past, and forgives her. The woman also begins to cry and says that she is her mother, and therefore could not have done otherwise. The Duchess assures that no matter what, she will always love her daughter. No matter how many sins Selena has in her soul, no matter how many people stand against her in order to protect her daughter, the mother is ready to go to hell. The mother's words touch the girl. She begins to cry and desperately asks for forgiveness for everything, promising that this will not happen again. Selena asks for forgiveness from her father and brother. The men approach the women and hug them tightly. Lucas stands outside the door and listens to the conversation, rejoicing that now there will be peace in the family. Sitting in bed, Selena looks around the room, thinking that she never thought she would stay in this place. Even now, the girl finds it difficult to believe that this is really her room. Looking at the luxurious decoration, the Duchess cannot believe that everything that is happening is not a dream. Now the girl knows for sure that her family will not abandon her, and no matter what happens, they will always be there. Indulging in these thoughts, Selena now understands how people feel when they are loved, and this calms and fills her heart. From this day on, the girl will be able to live a full life as Duchess Selena. Now Selena will no longer doubt herself, and she will no longer have anything to fear. Walking home from practice, Lucas notices that Aaron is somewhat distracted today. The brother notices his sister on the balcony and happily waves at her, but Lucas silently turns away and Selena decides that he is still sulking. Lucas is understandable. He genuinely cared about the Duchess, and she jumped off the tower as soon as he briefly left the mansion. The girl decides that if the Lord is still angry during their next meeting, she will apologize to him. Aaron rushes at his friend, declaring that he noticed how angry he was looking at his sister. Lucas looks away absent-mindedly and states that he doesn't hold a grudge against Selena at all. The Duchess drinks tea and reflects that several days have passed since she woke up, and Aiden has not come to check on her. The girl turns to Jane and asks if she knows where Aiden is now. The maid becomes embarrassed and begins to mutter something inaudibly, not knowing what to answer to the mistress. Selena throws the cup on the table and asks in fear if something really happened to the young man. The Duchess decides that the servant could have been punished because of her, and she could not even think that this could happen. Selena desperately thinks that she acted too frivolously. She should have taken his side as soon as she woke up. Noticing the mistress's anxiety, Jane gently asks the girl to calm down and reports that Aiden is fine. Selena doubts the maid's words and asks why in that case. He's nowhere to be found. All this time, Aiden is tormented by incessant nightmares of scenes of what happened. Each time the young man wakes up screaming, trying again and again to stop his mistress. Aiden closes his eyes in horror, wondering if there is a worse nightmare than this. The young man realizes with bitterness that he was used, and he behaved like an idiot. And now this will be a lesson to him. Aiden remembers a trip to a candy store. Selena took him with her only to kill herself at the opportunity. Paul enters the servants' room and reports that the Duke wants to see the young man. Aiden wearily takes his head, realizing that the time has finally come. Paul advises the young man not to worry, because only thanks to him the mistress was saved. Suddenly the butler asks how Aiden is doing with magic. The young man flinches in surprise. And then the servant notices how the other servants are talking in whispers about what happened to him. Paul confidently says that Aiden needs to cheer up because he didn't do anything wrong. Obviously, he himself didn't understand what happened. The butler, with a grin, advises the guy to straighten his back because with such a sour expression, you might think that he really did something. Aiden is sure that the Duke is angry with him because such powerful magic is under the strict control of a special magical association. The young man realizes that the fact that he was a servant of the family, hiding such an ability, was revealed. Sighing, the young man hopes that he will simply be removed from office. But if Aiden is branded a scout or a murderer, then in prison he will not be able to utter a word in his defense. The butler opens the door and reports that the young lady's personal servant has arrived. Aiden enters the office, thinking that one way or another he does not regret anything and would save his mistress again using magic. The Duke carefully notes that Aiden himself must not have fully recovered. The servant replies that for a person like him, the help provided was enough. The previous day, the young man assured Ian that everything was fine with him, especially since the doctor examines him every day. The priest assures that Aiden's body needs rest, because even he himself has difficulty restoring his own strength. Putting his hands on the young man's back, the priest notices that the guy tried hard to save the young lady's life. After a while, Aiden is surprised to realize how much easier it has become for him. Now he can even move his shoulders. Jan declares that the young man is a very kind person, and he will definitely be rewarded by the goddess Ariana. Having barely finished speaking, the priest suddenly falls to the floor and instantly falls asleep. The Duke notes with annoyance that he has repeatedly told Ian that he himself needs to fully recover before taking on others. The man explains to the young man that the priest overdid it, and that's why he's still sleeping. Aiden, confused, asks why the Duchess sent the Holy Father to him. The Duke states that the servant was badly injured, and without help it would have taken him several months to recover. Suddenly, the Duke turns and says to the side that he made the guest wait a long time. The man turns to Sir Allegan, saying that this is the same Aiden. Looking at the main magician of the Empire, the young man understands that he cannot be confused with anyone, especially since he has already seen him in the Imperial Palace. The magician notices that they have not seen each other for a long time. After all, The young man is the same diamond in the rough. Jane ends the story by saying that she doesn't know what they were talking about, but Aiden hasn't left his room since that day. The maid says that there are rumors that what happened could not but leave a mark on the guy's psyche, and therefore Madame granted him an indefinite leave. Suddenly the girl realizes that she has said too much to her mistress and upsetly asks for forgiveness. Selena turns to the maid and asks her to properly pack 2 pieces of cake. The Duchess gives 1 box to Jane as an apology and says that she will have 1 more request. Flattered, Jane clutches the box and declares that Selena can ask her for anything. The mistress asks to keep their conversation secret and asks to explain where Aiden's room is. The young man wakes up from a knock on the door and the voice of Selena, who is calling him. Pressed against the door, the girl asks whether the young man is sleeping or not. Aiden looks at the door in amazement, realizing that he did not dream about the Duchess's voice. Pressing her back against the door, the girl sadly says that the young man must not even want to see her. Knowing that Aiden can hear her, Selena reports that everything is exactly as it should be. The Duchess quietly says that if it is the will of the young man, then he can continue to pretend that he is sleeping. The girl admits that she doesn't remember what happened before and after the jump, but she knows that Aiden jumped after her. Receiving no answer, the Duchess wonders if the servant was really scared. The girl does not understand why Aiden did this, because in the end he also suffered greatly. Selena notices that when she woke up, the young man wanted to tell her something, and she would really like to know what exactly. Suddenly, Aiden hears footsteps approaching and suddenly flings open the door to his room. The butlers pass by the door and make plans for the upcoming free evening. Aiden holds the mistress by the shoulders and listens carefully to what is happening in the corridor. The young man abruptly jumps away from his mistress, noting that if the servants caught her visiting his room, it would be very awkward. Selena sits on the bed, watching as Aiden clings to the curtain with his hands in embarrassment. Looking around the servants' room, the girl notices that it is empty, but very clean, and says that the room is a complete reflection of the owner. Suddenly, the Duchess takes the young man by the hand and gently asks him to come to her. Selena calmly says that she just wants to see his face while talking to him. The guy sits down on a chair, but stubbornly looks at the floor, and Selena quite sincerely asks for forgiveness. Aiden covers his face with his hands, and his shoulders begin to tremble convulsively. The girl tries to calm the servant down, saying that she was wrong, and she is sincerely sorry. Selena declares that she has realized everything that she has done, and promises that she will never do that again. The embarrassed young man notices that everything is all right with him, and the mistress can let go of his hand. Selena removes her hand with a smile and says that Aiden has really calmed down. The young man looks at the lady and notices that she is laughing carefree. He has never seen her like this before. The Duchess closes her eyes and calmly replies that she now feels safe. The servant quietly asks the girl to promise that such an incident will never happen again. The young man says that he was not himself when he saw the bloody body, but Selena interrupts him and swears that this will not happen again. The girl opens the box with the cake and says that she brought it especially for Aiden because he loves sweets. The guy happily says that he doesn't have a fork in his room, and now he quickly runs to the kitchen. The Duchess grabs the young man by the hand, sits him down on the bed, and asks where he is going to run. Selena calmly remarks that there is no need to run to the kitchen. You can eat the cake without a fork. Aiden takes a piece, carefully bites it, and thinks with pleasure that it is very tasty. Selena looks at the appetite with which the servant eats the cake and thinks that she wouldn't mind trying it too. Looking at the mistress, Aiden declares that he cannot eat it all by himself. Selena extends her hand and invites the young man to give her a small piece. Not at all embarrassed, the lady takes the cake and takes a bite of it with pleasure. The guy looks at the Duchess in amazement, not believing that she seriously did this. Aiden begins to laugh at the ease of the situation, and Selena asks in surprise why he is laughing. The guy admits that sometimes the lady behaves very unpredictably. Noticing the crumbs on the Duchess's face, The young man takes a handkerchief and carefully wipes it away. Selena points to the cake and suggests splitting what's left of it in half. Aiden laughingly says that it won't be fair because the girl has already eaten half of it. Returning to her old life, Selena met people she already knew, regardless of position. Everyone worked hard. The parents and brother say goodbye to the girl, saying that they will return soon and advise her to rest. The Duke has gone to an important meeting, the Duchess is holding a charity fair, and Aaron has gone to inspect the territory of the duchy. Walking around the courtyard, Selena notices Lucas, who asks the young man about the date for the expansion of the arsenal. The Duchess turns away sharply and hides around the corner, but Sir Lucas managed to notice her. The girl decides to leave quietly so as not to distract busy people from important matters. The young man looks at the knight in fear, and, noticing how his face has changed, asks what he did wrong. The lord looks after Selena with a grin, thinking that she continues to ignore him. Jane has created a noticeable fuss in the Duchess's chambers, and the girl sadly thinks that everyone except her is busy with business. Coming to her mother, the girl says that she also wants to do something useful, even if it is something not very important. The Duchess says that when her daughter was little, she was constantly dissatisfied with something. Selena was always trying to become someone and achieve something in order to assert herself. When something didn't go as desired, the Duchess blamed absolutely everyone for it. Selena remembers Mika's words that you can truly live only by benefiting others. The mother continues that regardless of the girl's successes and failures, the family always said that they loved her. The Duchess invites Selena to think a little later about how she can be useful. The woman strokes her daughter's cheek and asks her not to worry, but to try to cherish every day. Selena sadly thinks that as soon as she begins to think about life, her instability immediately makes itself felt. The girl answers, calling the Duchess mom, that she understood everything and will try very hard. The woman became very emotional and noticed that her daughter had not called her mom for so long. The Duchess says that she is incredibly pleased to hear such words and asks the girl to call her that at least sometimes when they are together. Selena happily says that she would be happy to do this and once again calls the Duchess mom. Hugging, the women sincerely enjoy the moment and each other's company. Suddenly, Aaron runs into the room and declares that he doesn't know what his mother and sister are doing here, but he wants to see them. The father also stands next to her, and Selena understands with incredible tenderness that this is a real family. Walking around the garden, the girl reflects that after talking with her mother, her heart became noticeably lighter. Selena decides to take a break for a while to think carefully about her future. Suddenly, the Duchess notices that Sir Lucas is standing by the tree, who is obviously waiting for her. The girl turns sharply with the intention of leaving. Lucas, who noticed this, growls in frustration. Deciding not to give up so easily, the Lord shouts after the Duchess that they have not seen each other for a long time. But without answering a word, Selena almost runs towards the house. Lucas catches up with the girl and says that he will keep her company wherever she goes. Selena coldly replies that everything is fine. She does not need company because she is going to her chambers. The knight notes with a grin that the Duchess's chambers are on the other side. Turning sharply, Selena thanks for the clarification and says goodbye to the man. Turning around, Lucas declares that he holds no grudge against the girl and asks her to give him some time. The Duchess stops and the Lord asks how long she plans to avoid him. Selena turns around and asks in surprise if Lucas hates her. The knight comes closer to the girl and asks if she really feels guilty before him. Looking intently at the man, Selena once again sincerely asks to forgive her. Noticing the girl's gaze, Lucas notices that he no longer looks as devastated as before. The Lord says that if the lady is truly sorry, then she will not refuse to fulfill one of his wishes. Selena remains silent, and Lucas wonders if he is asking so much of her. As she leaves, the Duchess says that if the Lord asks her for something strange, she will tell her brother about it. The Lord laughs and says that they have agreed, and now he will take her to the room. The maids look on with delight and cannot take their eyes off the returning Aiden. The young man really looks very good and, as always, greets everyone politely. Paul happily greets his friend and notices that the vacation has really benefited him. Selena sits in her room by the window and hears the voices of the servants saying Aiden's name. Jane says that the young man has become the object of everyone's attention. The servants believe that Aiden's act is very romantic. The girl continues that even men admire the guy's magical abilities, and he has become the object of not only attention, but also envy. The Duchess remembers asking Aiden what he wanted to tell her. The young man does not understand what he is talking about, but the girl explains that when she was unconscious, she heard his voice. The servant is embarrassed and mutters that, as he already said, he didn't mean anything special. The Duchess admits with a sigh that it's a shame. She was hoping the guy would tell her. Turning to the maid, the girl asks her to tell Aiden to immediately come to her chambers. Lucas looks at the pensive Selena and wonders if they can continue their conversation. As if waking up, the girl remembers the conversation and asks what the Lord wanted to tell her. The knight sighs and notices that no matter how hard they tried to shut the servants' mouths, there are already rumors in high society that Lady Howitt had an accident. The man says that lately everyone has been doing nothing but trying to refute them. Selena is surprised to notice that Lucas speaks about this easily, although the others keep their mouths shut. The man confidently declares that there is nothing good in hiding it. He believes that the girl should know the truth. Selena looks thoughtfully at the Lord and thinks that his words sound quite logical. The Duchess says that she wants to take part in resolving everything that she herself has done and asks Lucas what she needs to do for this. The Lord is surprised to hear that the lady asks him to become her assistant in discussing this issue. Lucas is somewhat puzzled by such a request, and the Duchess's frankness and replies that of course the girl can count on him. The man says that first he needs to throw the mistress into the hands of those who are interested in her well-being. The girl looks back in bewilderment. Vivian throws herself on the bed in frustration and declares that Selena didn't show up for the meeting after all. With tears in her eyes, the girl says that the Duchess also disappeared without saying a word to anyone. Lucas says that we need to arrange a meeting in the garden. New acquaintances will not be superfluous. If the Duchess showed up at the party, people would think that the accident was just a ridiculous rumor. With a sigh, Selena realizes that she will have to take charge of organizing the holiday. The mistress says that of those who can be invited, only Vivian comes to mind. After thinking for a while, the girl asks Lucas if he would help her make a guest list. Vivian shouts joyfully that the Duchess is hosting a garden party and has sent her an invitation. Mia quickly walks down the corridor, thinking that Selena specifically excluded her from the guest list. And if this continues, the Duchess will simply refuse her. The girl is afraid that if she fails to complete the task, her father will sell her to some rich old man. Miss Ratchapel understands that she needs to prove her worth in any way, and first she should talk to her father. Standing outside the door, Mia hears an unfamiliar voice declare that the Howites have stolen what he has been nurturing for so long. Mr. Rappapel notes that the interlocutor should have taken care in advance to ensure that this did not happen. The man says that the interlocutor must bend over backwards, but correct the situation. Mia doesn't understand what they're talking about and doesn't recognize the guest's voice. She's never heard it before. Ian is walking through the garden and suddenly hears Aiden calling out to him and trying to catch up. The young man tries to catch his breath, greets the priest, and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. When Ian asks how the shoulder is, Aiden states that everything is fine, as if nothing had happened. The young man warmly thanks the priest, but Ian replies that there is no need to thank him. In fact, he is indebted to all of them. The priest thinks that the people in the estate become happy when he helps them, and this makes Ian feel special. Aiden remembers why he came and hands the Holy Father an envelope, saying that he was given a letter from the church. Ian looks at the message with fear, which puzzles Aiden. Yang first showed his incredible strength when he was only 8 years old. Hearing words of gratitude from the woman, the priest said that it was not the boy who should be thanked, but their church, which helps people. The Holy Father notices that God sees everything, and therefore he asks to keep what the boy did a secret. A little later, the Holy Father beat the boy's hands with a whip, leaving bloody marks on them. The man is furious and asks if Young is tired of using the power of the Almighty. The boy tries to justify himself by saying that he just wanted to help the woman, because her hand was very painful. A man with a layer beats Ian with a whip, shouting that the head priest ordered him to hide his power. When the senior priest came to John's room, the boy was crying bitterly from pain and resentment. Putting his hand on the boy's head, the man quietly asked if the boy did the right thing, in his opinion. The Holy Father says that every time Ian helps others, his arrogance awakens. The boy screams in despair that everything is completely wrong. He does this because people like it when he helps them. Grabbing the boy by the face, the priest declares that in the end, using his abilities, Ian himself becomes delighted. The man declares that the boy should be ashamed because hiding behind the name of the Lord, he is engaged in insignificant boasting. Selena looks at the priest sitting in front of her and asks if he really wants to go back to the temple. Ian replies that in his opinion, he has no right to be in the Duke's estate. The girl looks at the young man in surprise and asks who told him such nonsense. Clutching the letter in his hands, Ian declares that the kindness of the gentleman has clouded his mind, and he has forgotten where he is, and the time has come to return to his place. Selena sighs and points out that the priest doesn't have to rush into a decision. The Duchess says that they hired a young man as a priest, and the temple has already received its payment for this. Rising, the girl declares that in light of the above, if Ian wants to be in the estate, he simply must stay. Selena walks along the path in the garden. Aiden stays behind the mistress, but does not lag behind her a single step. Suddenly stopping, the girl asks the boy to take 3 steps towards her. Aiden hesitantly approaches, and the mistress states that she can now see his face. Continuing to walk forward, the Duchess says that the young man should not worry too much about Ian. Suddenly, the girl quietly invites the servant to continue chatting together, just as carefree. Aiden, trying to hide his true feelings, replies that of course he doesn't mind. Mia screams in horror that Count Poland is both a pervert and a libertine. Does her father really intend to marry her to him? The father sharply taps the floor and declares that the premium meat that his daughter ate for lunch was paid for with his money. The man angrily asks how his daughter repaid him in gratitude for everything he did for her. Turning sharply, the father says as he goes that preparations for her wedding will begin from today. Stopping at the threshold, Mr. Ratchapel declares that when he has guests, there is no need to eavesdrop on the office. The girl throws herself on the floor, thinking that her father no longer needs her. Bursting into tears, Mia reflects that now only she can protect her life, even if it hurts her damn family. Lucas carefully studies the book, glancing sideways at the lady sitting opposite him. Closing the book, the Lord asks Selena what she is so busy thinking about that she doesn't notice everything around her. The Duchess replies that thanks to the guest list, she will be able to remember all the people listed there. But what to do with the partners they bring with them? Lucas calmly replies that he will help his mistress as much as possible. Lord says everyone knows about memory loss, so if Selena forgets someone, it won't be a big deal. Standing on the balcony, Lucas reflects that he lived and pretended that everything was normal, as if nothing else mattered, and thought that this was right. Frowning, the knight wonders in surprise how it turned out that in reality, everything is not so. Selena slams the book shut and tells Aiden that it's getting pretty late, and it's time for everyone to rest. The young man carefully examines the flower and reports that he is almost finished. Suddenly, the mistress asks the servant why he does not go to the magic tower. The girl says that she knows that her father introduced the young man to a high-ranking wizard, and asks why the young man did not tell her anything about this. Aiden remembers the meeting. The Duke assures that the guy can receive official certification for his abilities. Seeing Aiden's doubts, Mr. Allergen said that he really liked the guy. Patting the young man on the shoulder, the magician declares that he obviously loves his work very much. But one way or another, all this should change his life. When leaving, Aiden was very upset, and he really wanted to leave, as if he was running away from everything. The young man's mood deteriorates sharply, and he asks if the lady really wants him to leave. Selena does not understand why her words hurt the servant so much, and asks if this is not what he would have wanted. Aiden gets angry and notices that the Duchess speaks as if she knows everything about him. Looking away, the young man asks how Selena can know what he really wants. The girl reflects that in the plot of the novel, Aiden was a character who dreamed of getting into a magic tower. The Duchess recalls that as soon as the young man condemned Selena in the novel, he left without looking back and became a wizard. Turning away, the girl conciliatorily says that she will mind her own business and invites Aiden to think carefully about what he really wants. Selena outlines the work that needs to be done before the party when suddenly the head butler appears in the greenhouse. The man apologizes for disturbing him, but the fact is that the Duke, Duchess, and Aaron are absent. The head butler reports that a man from the temple has come to see Priest Jan. The man says that the strange guest was none other than the high priest himself. Regardless of Yang being a guest in the manor, the butler thought that the visit of a high-ranking priest should be reported to the owners. The Holy Father smiles and declares that it is a great honor for him to meet the young Duchess of Howite. Selena greets the priest, thinking that he is trying too hard to make a good impression. The man runs up to Ian, calls him son, and says that he left without saying a word about it. The girl notices that the priest is pretending to be friendly too much, and Aiden sees that Ian is clearly uncomfortable. The priest tells the young man that if he is finished with his work, he must return to his place in the temple. The priest is sure that even without his reminders, Ian was going to return in the near future. The young man bows his head low and says in a hopeless voice that the Holy Father is right. The high priest knocks his knee with a laugh and declares that Yang is a very good child. The Duchess suddenly declares that although she does not know all the circumstances, judging by the expression on Ian's face, he does not want to return. The priest says that the young man has lived in the temple since birth, and he must be delighted with the way he is treated in the aristocratic family. Squeezing Yana's shoulder, the priest continues that, as soon as the young man realizes that he does not deserve all this, he will become ashamed and begin to regret. Selena doesn't understand why the young man doesn't deserve this. Is there really someone else who has the same abilities? The Duchess notices that even she, who just lays around all day, is treated like a mistress. The high priest obsequiously declares that the girl is the real mistress. Selena continues that she has no powers like her brother. She does not master the art of fencing. She has no magical or divine powers. She is simply a mistress. The girl asks if in the eyes of the Holy Father, she really looks like she really deserves all this. Addressing Ian, the Duchess confidently declares that he has every right to be treated well. Selena assures that the people whom the young man helped, though, so that he remains on the estate, and that he deserves to be there, just like herself. The high priest says that the lady misunderstood everything and asks John to say directly what he thinks about this. To the priest's surprise, the young man states that he has actually been thinking about this for several days. Falling to his knees in front of the priest, Ian explains that he wants his power to bring happiness to people, so he will work humbly so as not to become a burden to God. Hearing that the young man asks permission to stay in the estate, the high priest instantly changes his face. The man runs up to Ian with a laugh and says that he has grown a lot since he already openly expresses his opinion, and he is very proud of him. The Duchess and Aiden think that a few moments ago, the Holy Father showed his true colors. In the carriage, the priest is furious and thinks that Yang immediately chirped as soon as he came out of his shadow. The man is sure that the young man will soon return, and then he will personally make sure that this does not happen again. The priest recalls that in parting, Miss Howitt stated that Ian is now part of the Duke's family, and from now on, he is their man. The priest hoped that the Duke and Duchess would be absent, and did not expect that the impudent girl would be able to interfere with him. The priest understands that some non-entity dared to take his victim and not let him go, and she must definitely pay for it. After the Holy Father left, Selena realized that she was mentally terribly tired of the conversation. Yang thanks the girl and states that thanks to her, he was able to gain courage in front of the head priest. In fact, when Selena saw Ian's frightened and fading look in front of the priest, she remembered herself in real life. The Duchess calmly replies that everyone should be able to say what they want. Aiden carefully straightens the blanket for his mistress, and she wishes him good night. The young man looks at the Duchess and asks for forgiveness for being rude to her yesterday. Remembering the conversation, the girl notices that everything is fine, and it was even nice. Looking at the bouquet collected by the servant, Selena says that he also has great talent. Like Ian, the girl declares that she wants Aiden to do as he wants every time, not paying attention to other people's opinions. The young man looks sadly at his mistress and thinks that if he does this, he will not be able to be with her. Coming out of the shower, Lucas reflects on the fact that today Selena will receive a reappraisal in social circles. Suddenly the Lord flinches in fear, noticing Aaron sitting in the room and screamingly asks what the hell he is doing in his chambers. Ignoring his friend's anger, the Duke says that he is very worried and asks what he should do. Lucas declares that tonight's party belongs to Selena, and if he decides to help Aaron, she will refuse. The knight assures that everything is fine with the lady, so the brother should not worry. The man states that when it comes to Selena, Aaron acts like a fool. The young Duke helps his friend dry his hair and thanks him for helping Selena so much. Throwing a towel over Lucas's face, Aaron declares that he must also go to the party and begs the Lord to talk to Selena. In the greenhouse, final preparations for the party are underway. Selena gives Jane the final orders. Suddenly, the girl notices her parents in the bushes, to which the mother embarrassedly says that they were just passing by. The Duchess is pleased to realize that her parents are really very worried about her. The Duchess explains to her daughter that it is not that they do not trust her. The woman assures that the preparation for the holiday, the budget, and the concept were simply impeccable. Selena asks with interest to tell her how she used to prepare for the holidays. The father replies that, to put it mildly, the costs used to be quite above average. The girl says that Lord Lucas helped her well and asks her mother not to worry too much. The Duchess takes her daughter by the hands and asks her to let her know immediately if anything happens during the party. Suddenly, the Duke's face changes, and the worried women ask why he has turned so pale. The Duke, barely holding back tears, asks if Selena really called the Duchess Mama. The girl embarrassedly says that she forgot that she promised to do this in private. The Duke shouts that this is parental discrimination. He also wants Selena to call him Dad. The Duchess drags her husband away with a laugh, noticing that he is acting just like a child. Looking after her departing parents, Selena mentally thanks them for such sincere support. Finally, the long-awaited party begins, and Selena and Lucas greet the guests at the entrance to the greenhouse. The girl quietly says that, judging by the decorations on the carriage, the Marchioness of Clarence has arrived. Lucas adds that she brought the second son of Earl Feltro as a companion. The young people thank the Duchess for the invitation and note that the greenhouse is incredibly beautiful. Suddenly, Vivian runs towards Selena, filling the surrounding area with her joyful cry. Running up to the mistress, the girl asks how she is feeling and reports that she was very worried about her. Suddenly, Vivian freezes with delight, noticing that Selena is wearing the dress that the girl sent her. The Duchess states that it was a gift from Miss Jonas, so she wanted to wear it and show it off to everyone. Selena thinks to herself that it took her a long time to decide to wear the dress, but she felt guilty towards Vivian. A crowd of girls is heading towards the Duchess, eager to pay their respects to her. Lucas approaches the girl, gently takes her hand and asks if she's okay. The Lord hopes that the girls got there well and asks permission to escort them to their place. Seeing how everyone's attention instantly turned to Lucas, Selena reflects that he is definitely a smart and thoughtful guy. While watching the night, the Duchess wonders why Sir Lucas isn't dating anyone. Lucas was originally destined to be with the holy maiden Ariel, but thanks to the efforts of the Duchess, the holy maiden married her brother. The girl reasons that no matter how you look at it, the Lord lost his relationship because of her. Deciding not to be upset, Selena decides that Lucas is talented and handsome, so he can definitely meet someone else. After several hours of continuous communication, the Duchess simply falls off her feet. Hiding behind a column where no one will see her, the girl decides that she needs to rest. Selena really wants to take off her shoes, but no matter how hard she tries, because of her fluffy dress, she can't reach her feet. Suddenly, Lady Vivian appears in front of the Duchess and carefully helps the girl take off her shoes. Selena is embarrassed and asks for forgiveness for the fact that the girl had to do this. Vivian says with a laugh that she also sometimes likes to secretly take off her shoes and relax. The girls chat casually, and the Duchess wonders whether she can have a real friend in this world. Vivian thinks that Selena was having so much fun that she didn't notice that she spilled her drink on her dress. A girl passes by a young man, thinking that she needs to clean her clothes as soon as possible. Suddenly, Vivian recognizes the young man and is surprised to think that he was clearly not invited to the party. Paul turns to Aiden and says he'll go get some more ice from the kitchen. Looking at his friend, the butler does not notice that he is walking directly across the guest. At the very last moment, Aiden grabs Paul and pulls him aside, helping him avoid a collision. The young people bow low, apologize for the incident, and ask if everything is okay with the guest.
The man irritably says that they spilled ice cubes on his shoes.
Aiden wants to help the guest clean his clothes, but he, with a sharp wave of his hand, orders the guy to stay away from him. The young man suddenly becomes ill. Paul supports his friend and notes that if he ran into a man, it would be a disaster. Looking at the guest, Aiden is surprised to realize that because of the man, he has a very bad feeling. The uninvited guest picks up the teapot and says that he and the Duchess have finally met. Selena looks at the blue eyes and brown hair and tries to remember who the man came with. Suddenly, it dawns on the Duchess that what is standing in front of her is not someone's companion, but Lord Jacob himself. Lord states that he is extremely honored that Miss Howitt knows his name. The man asks permission to formally introduce himself and declares that the girl is Jacob Cooper from the estate of Count Cooper. The Lord falls to the Duchess's hand, and she thinks that he is doing it too openly. Shaking her hand, Selena wonders if the time has come for this character to appear. Lord Lucas turned out to be the star of the party. Not only girls, but also boys constantly surround him. Looking around in search of Selena, the knight is surprised to notice her in the company of Lord Cooper. Lucas doesn't understand what they're talking about, but he notices with displeasure that Jacob is laughing cheerfully. Looking at the Duchess sitting with her back to him, Lucas hopes that she is not smiling. Aiden looks at himself in the mirror and is surprised that for no reason at all he began to turn inside out. The young man recalls that strange sensations began after contact with a man he did not know. The servant remembers how Sir Aidan said that levitation and teleportation were too difficult, and the young man did not learn this, but was able to use them out of desperation. The magician said that Nosha should not use magic frivolously until he learns to control it properly. Magic, by its nature, is very sensitive. Since Aiden began to use it by accident, his power is very unstable. Aidan says that if the burden collides with dark magic, it will begin to turn over from the inside. Looking at his hands, Aiden wonders if this could be the side effect Sir Aidan was talking about. Selena drinks tea, and Cooper states that during the wedding, the line about the orange made him laugh. The Duchess, who did not expect a reminder of that incident, choked, and all the tea splashed out in the Lord's face. The girl embarrassedly asks for forgiveness and says that she will call someone for help. Jacob wipes himself with a handkerchief and assures him that everything is fine. He just didn't expect Selena to be so surprised. After cleaning himself up, Jacob asks what the Duchess thinks of Lord Lucas. Not understanding where the Lord is going, the girl replies that Sir Lucas is a man whom she respects and trusts. Lucas is the vice commander of the Duke's night squad, and he is also Aaron's best friend. Cooper says that these words are a relief to him, since he was afraid that Selena, like other women, would be charmed by Lucas. While pouring tea, Jacob admits that his heart belongs to the Duchess. Noticing that the tea has long overflowed, Cooper screams that he is too sloppy. The young man extends his hand to Selena and asks if she would lend him a handkerchief, since he had already used his own. The girl understands that the Lord is using a banal trick. Having received the scarf, he will try to beg for a new meeting under the pretext of returning it. Suddenly, Lord Lucas approaches the couple and hands Jacob a handkerchief, offering to use it. The man declares that today he is Selena's partner, so if she needs something, then he is simply obliged to help. Cooper clears his throat and says that everything is already dry, so he no longer needs the handkerchief. Suddenly, the company hears some screams behind them and a strange bustle. The young people, one after another, start screaming that they spilled their drinks on them. Selena realizes with a grin that each of those who got wet hopes to receive a handkerchief from Lord Lucas. Looking at the man, Selena notices that he is not happy about such attention, but is angry. The Duchess calls Jane and whispers something in her ear. The girl nods in agreement and runs away. Turning to the girl, Lord Cooper notices that they were discussing something important. The man presses his hand to his chest and pathetically declares that for the sake of Lady Selena, he is ready to get a star from the sky. The Duchess and Lucas look at their interlocutor in bewilderment, not believing that he seriously said this. Cooper does not stop and says that as soon as he saw the Duchess, she immediately captured his heart. Tired of listening, Selena abruptly interrupts Jacob and asks him to calm down. The girl turns to Lucas and asks him to calm down those people who spilled drinks on themselves. Aiden approaches the table with a basket in his hands, and the girl invites him to sit next to her. Selena asks if the young man brought what she asked for, to which Aiden shows her a basket full of scarves. Suddenly, Jacob asks with deep contempt, how dare the servants sit at the same table with them? Aiden stands up abruptly, intending to leave, but Selena stops him and tells him to sit back down. Standing up abruptly, the Duchess declares that if Sir Jacob is uncomfortable, they will happily move to another table. Selena states that she is concerned that preparations for the holiday were insufficient. Pointing towards Aidan, the Duchess states that they have prepared a small gift from the heart for everyone. Looking at the scarves in the basket, the girl says that today everyone needs them. Selena asks Lucas if he would help deliver gifts to their valued guests. Watching the Lord, Selena thinks with a grin that this all resembles an autograph session for his fans. Lady Vivian approaches the Duchess and says that today was the first time she enjoyed a party without counting the time. The girl is very embarrassed, but still makes up her mind and quietly asks Lady Selena to stay as far away from Lord Jacob as possible.